Welcome everybody to the April 16th, 2024 Tompkins Legislature meeting. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can we have the roll call of members, please?
Couldn't hear.
Ann Corman.
Here.
Mike Lane.
Here.
Greg Mezzi.
Here.
Veronica Pillar.
Here.
Here.
Mike Sigler.
Not yet.
Shauna Black.
Here.
Travis Brooks.
Here.
Randy Brown.
Here.
Amanda Champion.
Here.
Susan Curry.
Here.
Deborah Dawson.
Here.
Rich John.
Here.
Dan Klein.
Here.
Mike Sigler. 13 members present.
Okay, we do have a quorum. We think we have 12 members in chambers, one on Zoom, and another one joining us on Zoom soon. All right, presentation of proclamations, petitions, communications, notices. All right. We do not have an executive session tonight. I know.
Yes, that deserves a hand.
And we will do some reordering of business. I would like to move Resolution N up to after our special topical presentation. That's about the broadband project, and we have quite a few people in the audience and on Zoom that are here for that, so we'll let them go home a little early, if there are no objections. All right. Next up is privilege of the floor for the public. If you're interested in speaking here under privilege of the floor, we ask that you fill out one of these blue forms that are located in the back of the room. And by doing so, you're agreeing to some rules, and let me read the rules out. 1, I agree to a 3-minute time limit. 2, I agree not to raise my voice. 3, I agree not to use lewd, obscene, profane, slanderous, or libelous language, or speak or act in a manner that would tend to incite a breach of the peace. 4, I agree not to speak about county personnel matters. Personnel matters include comments about the job performance of named county employees other than elected officials. Number 5, after 3 minutes, I agree to leave the microphone and yield the floor. Transferring time to another person is not permitted. 6, I agree to be courteous and not make comments, gestures, outbursts, or other disruptions while other members of the public or legislature are speaking. 7, I agree that if I cause a disruption and I'm asked to leave, I will leave the chambers. Okay, first up is Jeff Toulon.
Good evening, Tompkins County Legislature. I'm Jeff Toulon. I'm a lifelong resident of Groton, New York. I live at 101 Main Street, Groton, New York, 13073. I'm here to describe a series of events that I believe are of interest to the county. Based on a series of events, including the Tompkins County Finance Department's attempt to illegally foreclose during a federally protected foreclosure moratorium, and other efforts by those interested in obtaining my home below market value, I have been forced into making this intervention, as a recent hearing where I was able to produce the evidence related to this and share this with the county's attorney was abruptly canceled prior to the agreement being made between the Village of Groton's attorney, the county attorney, and sort of very rapidly with, I guess what you would say, complicity. I just got confused during this process, to be quite honest. Subsequently, I kindly request special consideration in terms of a delay and or reduction in interest and or a multi-year payment plan, which would allow for the repayment, which is now feasible considering this property is my home and will no longer be operating beyond accessory dwelling units and small minimal Airbnb rentals. I am requesting reconsideration regarding the impending foreclosure and for consideration surrounding the circumstances and evidence involving the situation which has led to my impending homelessness. Due to the conflict of interest, which involves my own Tompkins County Legislature, I've sought this direct intervention to the Legislature based on my previous work and lifetime experiences here in Tompkins County, both having worked with Carol Chalk and Martha Robertson extensively on the fracking issue, but having worked my entire life on programs such as the Learning Web and others. I just am really aghast at what's happening here. And it's not just me that is having this kind of issue. Due to a calamity of errors involving an erroneous interpretation of my physical address resulting from my legal permanent address being officially a postal box, which was approved by both the Postmaster of Groton and the Tompkins County DMV in 1996 when I got my license here. And since I was 16, and due to historic precedents involving mandatory P.O. boxes, for some of you that don't know, some of the villages had mandatory P.O. boxes for a century where if you were proximate to the post office, you were not allowed to get home delivery. That's part of what complicated this with me. But regardless, this is the home I've lived in for the majority of my life. Can someone give me a time? Am I 30 seconds? Okay. Due to what I believe are extrajudicial efforts to obtain my building involving local attorneys, on top of being targeted as an activist or a targeted individual based on all of my work here in the county, I do not think I'm getting any due process in this process. The recent effort to overturn my bankruptcy and the negotiated agreement between the county's attorney and the village's attorney led to the prevention of the sharing of the actual evidence involving these various other bankruptcies, which were done in error, mostly based on my address not being acknowledged. Anyways, I'm sending information to the clerk. All of the evidence, including all of the letters, court filings, and everything will be sent to you guys within 48 hours. Thank you. I cede the floor.
Thank you. Next up is Zach Wynn.
Good afternoon. My name is Zach Wynn. I live here in the city. Following the County Health Department's issuance of a notice of violation relating to environmental contamination from jungle number 1 by the inlet, I was expecting some form of press release or other media coverage to follow. The issue was discussed at length at the recent meeting of the Ithaca Common Council on April 10th. It is my understanding that no press release will be issued because there is not one typically issued with other notices of violation. What is going on at Jungle 1 is not a messy front yard with broken down cars. It is a major public health issue that is relevant to numerous parties and countless people. The lack of a press release means that there is no news coverage of this of these events apart from citizen journalism by myself on Ithaca Crime's social media pages and a Facebook page called Unspoken Ithaca Tompkins. Other local media outlets have totally ignored this citation, the involvement of the DEC, and the timetable to remediate the site. I do not think this is an accident, but rather a conspiracy of silence designed to shield the city from embarrassment and bad PR. This subject is newsworthy, and I request the legislature inquire why there is no press release on this issue of the notice of violation and involvement of the DEC and the county ordering a cleanup. I would buy the proffered explanation that were there any interest in the subject by the local press. This is one municipality citing another. This is not the county telling someone to clean up their own personal property. And, you know, why has no one else discussed this apart from myself and the other Facebook page I mentioned? I think it's very, very odd. So I understand that, you know, the suggestion that you wouldn't issue a notice of violation, a press release on any other notice of violation, but this isn't a normal one. This is the county citing the city. The DEC is setting up a timetable to clean up this site, and no one is talking about it apart from myself and a few other people on Facebook. So if you want to cede this subject to Ithaca Crime, I'd really appreciate the exclusive and everything, but I think this is bigger than me, and it's bigger than, you know, any one you know, group or the city trying to you know, clean up a mess that they shouldn't have allowed to occur in the first place. So thank you very much. And Deb, I do have a quick question. You sit on the TCAP board. Can you figure out why the cards are swiping through regardless of their value and why the fares are not being collected properly? So I would like to pay, but there's no point in buying more swipes if they're not going to get, you know, deducted from my account. So thank you.
I don't have any other blue cards. Is there anyone else that wanted to speak today under privilege of the floor? Are you going to try to call him in? Phone him in? Yep, go for it. We have Mike Morrell up.
Just one moment. Mike, are you there? Yes, you have 3 minutes, no cursing, please. Go ahead.
Okay. Yes, my name is Mike Morrell. I'm a resident here in the jungle. I've been here 30 years. Last 15 or 16 is because I've had to be. He just had cold weather policy end with a shelter, and there's 150 in the shelter program. They're now, looking for, places to camp and whatnot. There's been an increase in population behind Lowe's, and eventually it's going to spread to where I'm at. I was threatened the other night. Somebody threatened to shoot me. I had to go out and spend $80 on a BB gun, instead of buying OSBs for the trailer that I'm in now. If somebody, or a group of people wanted to donate cameras as well as Wi-Fi, I have the power down here, to set up cameras and help IPG monitor what goes on. I just don't have the funds for cameras or Wi-Fi. But like I said, if somebody wants to donate, I do have the power. I have solar panels and, deep cycle marine batteries. So I have power, all the time. I just need help to, help you guys police the area, basically. All right, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public? No? Okay. Municipal officials, Pierre St. Perez from the City of Ithaca. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I brought notes this time. I figured since the interest this body has in our ongoing policy involving the unhoused population in the city, the city manager has a response protocol that was unveiled at our last meeting and has been presented to Common Council. I just thought I'd basically walk you guys through it briefly. To be clear, this is a response protocol. This is not really a support plan. This protocol divides properties into, you have actively managed city property, right? So this is things like trails, things like building spaces that the city is in active use of. And they actively managed areas, if there is an encampment or if there are people camping there, the response protocol will be first there will be a report that will receive a report that there is someone camping there. The city will then verbally notify the camper if possible and put up a 24-hour vacate notice along with a resources flyer. After those 24 hours, the encampment will be removed. And this is, again, actively managed properties. On lightly managed properties, and again, this is all city property, after an initial report, there will be a first notification, ideally coordinated with community partners, followed by a second notification, which would then be followed by a vacate notice, which, depending on the context and situation, could vary from 24 to 96 hours, and would be involved with attempts to coordinate supportive services. This would be followed by the removal of the campsite and site remediation with the removal of items, critical items entering storage, and the property removal notice will stay in place for 2 weeks following that. Finally, for non-city property, after a report, it will be processed as trespassing. On a lighter note, tomorrow, the city is going to discuss our Justice 50 plan as part of our Green New Deal. Please hit me with any questions you got.
Any questions for Pierre? Shauna?
I just wanted to ask, so this plan, has it been voted on by council, and are you currently implementing it and enforcing it?
As I understand it, this plan is what the city manager was tasked with creating this plan by council in December, so by the last council. So this plan has been approved. It was approved in December. It is just being enacted now.
So there has been enforcement?
I don't think there has been enforcement of it yet, but this is, as I understand it, the current response protocol.
Great, thank you.
Mike Sigler?
So I'm just curious, does this mean I can basically go into the city of Ithaca and set up camp in any public space, and I can wait till somebody comes and somebody will verbally tell me I have 24 hours to move? So basically I can overnight camp in any city space, basically, in the city of Ithaca.
Is this a vision you have?
Well, I mean, that's what would happen, right? If I went and I wanted to camp in West Park, for example, over on Court Street, I can go and set up a tent, and I can camp overnight there. That'll be illegal, basically.
I'm not sure if the specific. I didn't catch the specific location you said. If that's actively managed, there will be the 24-hour notice.
Right. So, actively managed is the highest level. So, a city park, that would be. I could go to Stewart Park and I could set up a tent and camp right there on the lake overnight and that should be okay.
I would like to note that police will be contacted if at any point there are immediate safety concerns. I'm hopeful you wouldn't present a immediate safety concern. So in that case, yes.
Okay. No, thank you very much.
Deborah?
Yeah, I want to be sure I understand this, because my perception of the problems that the predecessor common council faced was trying to reach some agreement about what enforcement would look like. So can we assume that this protocol that you've outlined is acceptable to the current common council on the question of enforcement?
This protocol was approved by the last council.
Okay.
And it has been presented to the current council. I would not speak for the current council on.
You're going to have to vote on it again? Is that?
Not unless the issue is raised again, right? This is current policy. Unless we revisit it, then it will remain current policy, as I understand. But were it revisited, I don't know how it would go.
Okay, thank you.
Randy?
Yes, thanks for coming today and for sharing with us what your plan is. And you have to start somewhere, right? So I realize that, there may be changes and it's a moving target, and hopefully we can work together with you on helping to solve some of this. But I have a question about sidewalks. So I've noticed as I was walking very close by to here, some sidewalks are in really bad repair and dangerous for people to fall on. And one's real close right down here in Tompkins Street. It's quite a hole right in the sidewalk. I was curious what the city does for that and how people report those types of issues.
Yeah, so you can actually report that as to my memory through the city website. You can report sidewalk issues. You can also report potholes. You don't need to email me or anyone else. I mean, you're welcome to. Please, you are welcome to. But you can just report them, and DPW does check those reports. As for sidewalks, the schedule for their repair is slightly slower than that for potholes. But there is a regular structure in place that the city has and a system of prioritization that we've worked a lot on over the past couple of years.
I'll send an email.
Yeah, and I would be happy to talk about that more once we hit the season where council is approving the sidewalk plan.
Great, thank you.
Rich.
I think Mike Sigler raised some legitimate concerns, but I did want to say this is progress. It has been, I know it's been a very long discussion at the city on developing a policy in regard to camping and trying to do something about it. So I applaud your efforts. I think we need to work together as a county and a city, but this is a good thing, to at least where we are today. You mentioned at the end another program that's launching, or something 50?
Yes, our Justice 50 plan, which is part of our Green New Deal. Council will be discussing it tomorrow. The plan involves several of our environmental objectives.
What are the 50?
The 50 refers to a 50% of funding being allocated to climate justice communities. Sorry.
Thank you.
Of course.
Greg.
Appreciate the update and more insight on the policy that you outlined. Lightly managed, I'm assuming that refers to natural areas or what we traditionally would call the encampments outside of the green zone. I don't know if we're still calling it the green zone.
As I understand, we're trying to not use the green zone terminology.
Okay.
But outside of the area that we will not be enforcing this.
So the sanctioned area that's been set aside.
Yes. Outside of the sanctioned area, if we're talking it's just an open space that is owned by the city, that is lightly managed, as opposed to actively managed is inactive use city property.
So I do have two follow-up questions. Has there been any conversation, because you talked about reclamation, has there been any talk about the budget implications of bringing the land back to its state after an encampment would be back on, and how that will be addressed? Obviously, city resources are going to be utilized. So that's the first question. And then the second question is, do you have any data or information on how many of these lightly managed initial notices or second notification or vacate notices have been issued already? Or is there a plan to track that and get regular updates on how this policy is being actually enforced?
So to your first question, we have discussed that, and the money is set aside in our current budget. We already have a solid plan for this year.
Great.
To your second question, as I think I mentioned, to my knowledge, this policy has not, as of last time that I talked to DPW, I didn't know of any cases of a notice being placed. There were several instances before this policy was officially promulgated where it was effectively followed, but technically it wasn't in effect yet. I am sure a track will be kept. I am confident of that. I don't have those numbers.
So I guess my other question then to follow up is, if the policy is in place, do you know when the policy will actually start to be enacted?
I mean, as I understand it, this is an active policy as of now. It was voted on in December, and it was given an implementation deadline, a implementation deadline of when Code Blue ended.
Okay.
Which it has. So again, to my understanding, this response protocol is currently in effect.
So is it safe to assume that those watching or in the city that are taking interest in this topic could expect to see significant improvements or vacating of the lightly managed areas in the next week to 10 days?
So the city is going to be prioritizing. We do have limited resources. So I wouldn't put a definite matter of days deadline on it, but I would say definitely expect change over time.
Okay, thank you.
Veronica.
Apologize if you said this while I was out of the room, but this policy isn't like someone's only going to go out to start the enforcement part of this policy if the city receives a complaint, right?
Yes.
So it's not like the city has staff going out and like proactively checking all their land.
As I understand it, even if we wanted to do that, we don't have the staff for it.
Yeah, that makes sense. So if no one specifically notifies the city of specific encampments, then we should not, in fact, expect anything to happen.
Yes.
Deborah.
Just one more question, sorry.
No, you're good.
So the sanctioned encampment area, what was the green area,
Yeah.
is exempted from this protocol? Is that?
That is how I understood it
Okay.
and continue to understand it.
All right, thank you.
Greg.
Just as a follow-up to Veronica's question, is there an email or where would you direct those to make complaints if they have them?
Reports.
Reports, not complaints, I apologize, reports.
That is a fantastic question.
So I'm here all night.
Yeah, thank
Every other
you.
Tuesday. First and third.
There is a way. I know that there is a way. And my notes sheet is of the draft, so it has to report a possible encampment, contact number to be announced. But there is a number.
Got it. All right, so call Rob or Deb.
There is an actual number. I just do not have it currently in my brain or in front of me.
All right, I appreciate it, thank you. If you could circulate that with the legislature, I'd appreciate that.
I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Pierre on his last visit to the Tompkins County Chambers?
Is that a joke?
Joke.
You don't
no.
think you can get rid of me that easily, do you?
Good.
I'll be back in 2 weeks.
Hang in there.
Dan.
Oh, there is. Amanda.
Well, that was actually my question. So I know you love coming here, but in the past, we've had 2 council members alternate coming. So did they all just say, no, we want you to be the only one to have to deal with them, or?
So I share this role with a fellow council member. I was very excited after our conversation 2 weeks ago to come and update you that we had developed a response protocol. So I'm happy to be here, and you may see more of me, but in theory, this role is shared.
Okay. Well,
Who's the other
thank you.
lucky person?
Alderperson Keel.
Thank you.
We are truly thankful and happy to have you here. So thanks for coming up, showing up, and we'll see you next time.
Of course. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay, we're up to legislative privilege of the floor. Susan.
I just wanted to say that I had the opportunity to attend the DEI summit that was organized by Charlene Holmes. It was really fantastic, and I wanted to say thank you and acknowledge the amount of work that it took to bring in all the speakers. I learned a lot. Thank you for organizing that.
Any other legislators? Rich.
I see there's an officer with us today with his badge with a bar, is it a bar on it? And I just wanted to salute the 2 police officers from Syracuse who were killed recently. Very, very sad incident. And I read one of the officers had 3 young children. It just must be a devastating time up in Syracuse.
Thanks for saying that. The county did fly its flags at half-mast yesterday? Today, okay. Mike Lane.
Haven't spoken about it very much lately, but Ukraine still needs our help. Israel still needs some help. Our immigration policy needs help. All three of those things are being held up by a very small number of people in the House of Representatives. And I hope that we can see some movement along all three of those things.
Anybody else for privilege of the floor? Okay. I do have a short chairs report. When the county sold the former public library site in 2017, we sold it to Travis Hyde Properties to redevelop as apartments. One of the selling points for the county was the partnership between Travis Hyde and Lifelong, a not-for-profit community center for those 50 and older. The apartment building, now called Library Place, is open and advertises itself as an inclusive community for active adults 55 and older. They formalized an agreement with Lifelong to allow Lifelong use of the community space in that building. I view this as a successful public-private partnership that increased the amount of housing in Ithaca and benefits a local not-for-profit organization, and I wish Library Place much success. Later in the meeting, we'll be acting on a resolution involving the county rolling out a whole slate of new benefit options for our employees, and we'll hear more about that later. I was asked to remind the legislators that we are also eligible for these benefits. They are payroll deductions that we can opt into if we want, and that the life insurance policies provide for guaranteed coverage if employees sign up during the initial eligibility period, which is now through the end of May. And if you miss this initial eligibility period, you will not have another chance for guaranteed eligibility. So again, we're all eligible for that, and all our employees. That procedure I just read is the same for everybody. And then I would like to say that after a long search, we are pleased to announce that we have a recommendation for our next county attorney, Maury Josephson. Is there someone that would like to move the appointment of Maury Josephson? Shauna Black?
Yes.
You want to say anything?
Yeah, I would like to move to appoint Maury Josephson as Tompkins County Attorney effective May 28th, 2024.
Good. Do we have a second? I saw Deborah's hand shoot up. Deborah, seconds. Thank you. So we will have a vote, but if there's anything that anybody needs to talk about, we need to go into executive session. So is there a move to go into executive session? Okay. In that case, let's have our vote.
Ann Corman.
Yes.
Mike Lane.
Yes.
Greg Mezzi.
Yes.
Pillar.
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff.
Yes.
Mike Sigler.
Yes.
Shauna Black.
Yes.
Travis Brooks.
Yes.
Randy Brown.
Yes.
Amanda Champion.
Yes.
Susan Curry.
Yes.
Deborah Dawson.
Yes.
Rich John.
Yes.
Dan Klein.
Yes.
14 ayes, unanimously passed.
Maury, welcome aboard. Come up and say as much as you like, or as little as you like.
Thank you very much. Chair Klein, all the legislators, staff, members of the public, I'm deeply humbled and at the trust and faith that the legislature is placing in me. And I pledge to you to do my utmost to provide advice and counsel that is sound, timely, and most important, useful to the county in accomplishing its objectives. I'd like to say a word about where I am now in advance of coming to the county, which is as an assistant city attorney for the city of Ithaca. it's a bittersweet moment for me. The past 4 years, I have worked with people who are consummate professionals and the best friends you can have. But the time comes to turn the page and move forward, and this is the right time. I hope for the county, and I hope for me. And with that said, I look very much forward to May 28th with great excitement, anticipation, and I wouldn't be completely honest if I didn't say a little bit of nervousness too, but I am very much looking forward to being of service to you and to the residents of the county. And in that respect, I hope the time between now and then goes by quickly, and that we have a long and productive and beneficial relationship. Thank you very much.
Again, welcome. You know, anyone can say more if you want, but Maury has quite a long resume and including quite a bit of municipal experience, and that we felt like he'd be able to step in pretty quickly and get up to speed pretty quickly. And we have a great attorney's office already. We have Holly Mosier that's been holding down the fort, and you got another month or 6 weeks or whatever till Maury starts, and the rest of your office as well. So I'm confident that we're in a good position.
Thank you very much, and I look forward to joining Holly and the rest of the office in moving forward.
Beautiful. Any other comments before we move on? All right. Next up, we have a presentation, Tompkins County Energy and Sustainability Efforts 2023 by Terry Carroll, Chief Sustainability Officer. Terry, you're welcome to join a seat up here or anywhere you want.
All right, thank you. So a couple things here. Without these giant screens here, I've tried to make the PowerPoint accessible by choosing larger fonts. I know that's been asked for in the past, but I apologize if anything's unreadable, so just ask for clarification. I'll say that we decided to do this presentation because Earth Day is coming up. So for those of you that aren't aware, next Monday, April 22nd, is Earth Day. And so in honor of that, we thought we would share some of what's going on at the county in terms of energy and sustainability. And this encompasses some of what we've done in previous years, or what Jonathan Wood has done in previous years, which is providing a report on the Waterloo generation, as well as what I've done previously in reporting Green Fleet and some green facilities efforts. So without further ado, we're going to talk a little bit about our energy use and costs, Waterloo, as I mentioned, Green Fleet, green facilities, talk about some of the programs and actions we enacted in 2023, and then also talk about what we're looking forward to doing in 2024, and then we have a little treat for you for the very end. So last year, we used about 7 million kilowatt hours. I wish I could show some historical data. Unfortunately, we've had issues up until recently with our energy management tracking software that allows us to see how much energy was used, and so we have some incomplete records from 2022, 2021. It would take a lot of digging to look into, but I will say moving forward, I think we have a great foundation to show historical usage moving forward. So consider this kind of a baseline of 2023, but what we do have is energy cost data. And so you can see there that it's been right around that $600,000 to $700,000 area. 2021, you know, in pulling this data, we looked into it a little bit. The belief is that some of the bills for 2022 are getting wrapped into 2021 on the electric side, and so that's why you see a little bit of a discrepancy there, why it's $700,000 and most other years are in the $500,000 region. But in general, our electricity costs, despite using more electricity year over year, have remained somewhat consistent, and I think a lot of this comes down to some of the work we've done with the green facilities projects in terms of energy savings and switching to LED light bulbs and some of these other efforts that we've made that I'll discuss soon. On the natural gas side, I think you see that rise not necessarily because of an increase in natural gas use, but because of the rising cost of natural gas that we've seen over the last few years. Historically, natural gas, especially in the 2010s, it's been very cheap, and lately it's started to increase. And I think a lot of that has to do with geopolitics and things that are outside of our control, but we're also looking at how we can try and cut down on our gas and electric use and be as efficient as possible. And because I know people are sometimes more graphically inclined, this is, I think, another representation of that. On the Waterloo side, this is a slide that we show every year, and the reason we show this slide is not for you to look at the numbers in depth or the lines and try and make sense of the spaghetti, but to show that energy use, both on that energy use that I just showed, but also in the Waterloo generation, it's incredibly variable. Some years it'll be really high, some years it'll be really low, and a lot of it has to do with weather and the seasons and what's happening at any given time. So this past year, 2023, was a middling year, I would say. It wasn't our largest amount of production from the hydro facility, which did come in 2021, but it also was better than 2022. And early indications are that 2024, the first 4 months have been incredible. So I'm hoping that if it continues this year, that when I show this slide to you next year, we'll be looking at another banner year. And the reason that's important is because Waterloo saves us a lot of money. So, an ABBA lyric for those music fans out there, but last year, Waterloo saved us about $71,000. And so you can see on the chart to the right, basically the monetary credits are how much we get from NYSEG in payment for the production of that facility. You can see how much we pay to Gravity Renewables, who's our partner in the hydro generation, and the balance of that. In some months, we get quite a bit. You look at January of 2023 and $18,000, and you compare that to October when we got about $6, so it's that variability that I was talking about before. But in general, we're seeing a lot of savings from this deal, and we're also seeing a lot of carbon saved, metric tons of carbon saved. So 1,683, which is equivalent to about 365 vehicles driving for 1 year. So a great deal overall for the county. On the green fleet side of things, we've been busy. So some, stories and pictures here. We have a Ford F-150 Lightning, one of our first electric pickup trucks. We have a picture of an EV car show that we put on for municipalities in Tompkins County. Our DSS parking lot where we did some upgrades to EV infrastructure. And then a slightly depressing picture at our sheriff's office of what we're using for charging there. And I show this because we're looking to improve it, and I'll cover that. But in general, we are seeing increases in our green fleet. We're slowly electrifying the fleet over time. This year we bought a bunch of battery electric vehicles, a bunch of plug-in hybrid electric vehicles. We're about a quarter of our fleet is now electrified in some way. We do continue to have some areas that are more difficult to electrify than others. So the sheriff's office, we have managed to put in a couple of electric vehicles, but that's always going to be a difficult area to electrify because of how they're used, especially without fast charging infrastructure in Tompkins County. Similarly, the highway department, our heavy-duty vehicles, the vehicles that are used to plow our roads, there just isn't a good solution for that right now. And so that's something that we are still struggling with when we think about how do we electrify our entire fleet. But for the passenger, the light-duty passenger vehicles that our health department or Department of Social Services use, those are very easy to electrify, and departments have been incredibly receptive to doing so. And so we've right now, with how the enterprise partnership has gone, it's really made procurement a lot easier, especially because the state has changed statewide procurement policy for vehicles, and it's taken a burden off of our finance staff for ordering vehicles. On the electric vehicle fleet infrastructure side, we are making upgrades. So I mentioned the upgrades that we did at the Department of Social Services. We are looking at maybe doing some upgrades at the Human Services building to think about what we might do with demand management there, since we're starting to see some demand management prices go up. We did an upgrade to the Public Works facility, so we found that the charging infrastructure there for the truck wasn't quite what we needed, so we made an infrastructure improvement there. And something that we're looking forward to in the near future, in part due to an earmark given to us by Senator Schumer and Senator Gillibrand, is what you see in this picture. It's an EV ARC. So it's a fully contained all-in-one charging solution / battery / wind/solar, and that's going to go to replace that sad-looking charging station that I showed at the sheriff's office. And so instead of having just a plug in the wall with a cradle, you'll see a nice state-of-the-art solar panel there, and that'll help alleviate some of our burdens with charging.
Pardon me, what does ARC stand for?
I don't know that it stands for anything. I think that's just a cool name that the company gave it.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So are we getting multiples of those?
We are getting 3. And this was something that was passed, I think, a month ago by the legislature, accepting the funds from the Department of Energy. And so we'll be getting 3, 1 at the Sheriff's Department, 1 at the airport, and then I believe we're going to put 1 either at Bostwick Road or possibly the Human Services Building. So. On the green facility side, last year we completed the green building policy update. We also completed phase 1 of the green facilities project, which included a variety of projects, geothermal at the public works facility, which you can see in these pictures, a VRF system, which is a type of air source heat pump at the mental health facility, heat pump upgrades at the library, weatherization and insulation at multiple of our buildings, and much needed electrical infrastructure upgrades, including at the old jail. We're currently talking about phase 2 and looking at what might make sense. And so HVAC solutions are needed in the near future at the Human Services Building and at the Department of Emergency Response. We're looking to see how we can capitalize on the advantages of the Inflation Reduction Act that have been made available to municipalities. But I don't want to spoil the F&I committee on Thursday. So if you want to learn more, join us at 9 a.m. and we'll have a robust discussion at that time. And on to some of the other projects that we've been working on. So we've been partnering with NYSERDA on a couple of different projects. One of them is before you in a resolution tonight for a lease option agreement with the Caswell Solar at our Caswell landfill, closed landfill. And that's going to look like a 10 to 13 megawatt solar array paired with a battery energy storage system. You can tell I submitted this PowerPoint before we had the meeting for peak. It says 112 acres. It's actually 65 acres. My apologies. But that project is going through a Dryden review, the town of Dryden review, and an interconnection study at the NYSO. And so we are having an open house tomorrow at the Neptune Fire Hall in Dryden at 5:30, so if folks have questions, please stop by. Myself and Nate Bates from Recycling and Materials Management will be joining NYSERDA to answer any questions from the community and hoping for a good turnout there. And then on Thursday, it'll be going to the Dryden Town Board to continue on with the review process there. Our second build-ready site with NYSERDA is actually at the airport. And so we signed a MOU with them for a feasibility study. That's still in process. This is another site that's looking at combining solar and battery storage. We've had a lot of good conversations with both the FAA as well as the consultants that are working with the airport. And we're in early stage design, and so I think we'll be sharing more news about that in the near future. Last year, we also saw the county become recertified as a climate-smart community at the silver level. I'm proud to say that Haley Delisle in our office led that effort, and we are the highest point total in the state amongst counties. So we're really proud of the efforts that the county has put into this, and it's, I think, been recognized by the community at large and by the state. And so we're really happy to be a silver community. I will say that silver is the highest level. It doesn't sound that great when we say we're certified silver, but that is the highest level that's available at this time. Another state program is the Clean Energy.
That deserves an applause.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, another program that the state offers is called the Clean Energy Communities Program. And last year, Tompkins County was awarded a $30,000 grant for actions that we've undertaken. We're using that $30,000 to pilot an induction cooktop program, partnering with with Whole Health and the Healthy Neighborhoods program. And we are going to disseminate cooktops and cookware to residents with gas stoves and asthma. The thinking being that induction cooktops help reduce the amount of combustion in the home from gas stoves and gas appliances, and will help with asthma. So we're excited to start that this year. Last year, we held a number of different trainings and events. They included that electric vehicle showcase that I showed a picture from earlier, but we also held a number of different trainings on heat pump nonconformities with the state, and that was directed towards code enforcement officers, and then another heat pump codes and best practices that was geared more towards air source heat pumps. And so this is something that we look to continue to do, that we hear from the municipalities that it's something that they enjoy, that is helpful on their end. It provides training credits for their code enforcement officers, and I think it helps raise the level of standard of what's being installed in Tompkins County overall. For our Business Energy Advisor Program, 2023 was a slow year. I think in many ways we were still recovering from the pandemic and seeing the effects of higher interest rates and the slowing down of development generally in Tompkins County. With that said, 2024 has started off with a bang. We've already had 5 projects come through, some municipalities, some local businesses, a large developer. And I was talking with Haley yesterday, and we have another one in the pipeline as well. So this is a program that has really started to take off this year, and we're excited to see it continue forward. Another issue that we brought to the attention of the legislature was the NYSEG and RG&E rate case. The county was a party to the case, reviewed the submissions. I think we have a better understanding of how those rate cases proceed, and it's something that we'll be taking back to the legislature in the near future. It seems like just yesterday that we were in this one, but next year we'll be doing it once again. So we'll be bringing you more information on that soon, don't worry. And then looking ahead to 2024, some exciting things that were underway and that will be bringing more information to various committees and to the legislature as a whole. We're working on an electricity emergency response plan, which is looking at what happens if in an electrified world of tomorrow the electricity goes out, what changes, what looks the same, how can we be prepared. We're in the process of creating a public EV charging RFP. This would be on behalf of the municipalities and institutions in Tompkins County, and putting it out there to see what options providers want to offer to our municipalities and institutions to then offer public EV charging. I mentioned the induction cooktop program, but in addition to that, you'll see another resolution today to accept funds from the Park Foundation that will enable us to do a thermal energy network feasibility study on DeWitt Park, which could influence not only how we electrify the heating of this building and the old jail and the courthouse, but also potentially the design of a new center of government building. The Build Ready projects I mentioned previously, green facilities, phase 2 planning, and then something that we've heard from the legislature and from various partners is just helping the community understand what we're doing. We do quite a bit, and I don't know that we necessarily always get the word out there very well. And so in light of that, what we're going to try and do more of is some marketing. And so let's see if I did this right. This is the treat. In Tompkins County, green is gorgeous. We're investing in our sustainable future through our operations and work with the community. Our focus is on renewable energy, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and local self-reliance, all in service of a greener local government.
There are over 40 electrified vehicles providing services to Tompkins County residents every day. From our Office of the Aging using their Mustang Mach-E to complete safety assessments for the elderly in our community, to caseworkers from our Department of Social Services visiting clients in their Nissan Leaf, to our facilities team working on HVAC repairs in their e-transit van. All provide services to Tompkins County without any tailpipe emissions.
Through our Green Facilities Initiative, we are retrofitting our existing buildings to achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions. That means we're reducing our energy load by improving efficiency through weatherization and insulation. It also means updating our lighting to LEDs, implementing water conservation measures, and converting heating systems from fossil fuels to electric heat pumps. Our government operation uses 100% renewable electricity. There are 7 solar panel systems on county facilities, and we have an agreement with a hydroelectric project in Waterloo, New York. The rest of the county's renewable electricity is provided by an energy supply contract with Constellation Energy. Getting our electricity from renewable sources is increasingly important as we transition our county operations from fossil fuels to electricity.
We're helping the community electrify and adapt to climate change through our Business Energy Advisors program. The program provides free energy advising for new construction or major building renovations in the county. Tompkins County is a Silver Certified Climate Smart community and has received funding through NYSERDA's Clean Energy Communities program to further the sustainability goals of our community.
Our efforts are thanks in part to a community of concerned citizens and elected officials advocating for sustainability and climate adaptation.
In Tompkins County, we take sustainability seriously and are working every day to implement changes for a better future for our residents. The best part is you can be a part of our sustainable future. Text GREEN to 888-716-2456 to learn more about sustainability in Tompkins County. You will receive one text per month with ideas and news on sustainability efforts. Visit tcgov.co/green to learn more.
Nice.
So it's truly terrible to watch yourself on video in a crowd, but that is, it's a video that was put together, massive thanks to Dominic and Rob. Rob did a fantastic job shooting everything and putting it together, and Dominic did a wonderful job helping us with the script and the idea. And has also developed a plan to distribute this to the community. So it's already gone out in some different email messages. It's on our website. It's part of my signature. And so it is a goal of ours to continue to broadcast what we're doing and to let people know that we're thinking about how to spend taxpayer money wisely, but also trying to green our efforts. So hopefully you have a better sense now of what the sustainability side of our Department of Planning and Sustainability is doing. So happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions for Terry? Randy.
Hey, Terry, thanks for the report and all the work you're doing. On page 10, where it says Green Fleet Updates, what does BEV and PHEV mean?
Oh, PHEV, so that's a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle.
Okay, and the other one's straight electric.
Instead of a straight electric vehicle, it has a battery and a gas engine and can seamlessly switch.
Okay, thank you. Regarding the energy management software, have we been using the same firm for many, many years?
Yeah, we've been using, it was formerly called Dude Solutions. They've changed their name to Brightly. The issues are not down to them. Unfortunately, it's largely due to NYSEG and how NYSEG has issued our bills in the past. We got 5 bills in one day for the same account, ranging from negative $52,000 to negative $3,000. And I think the software is just not designed to handle that sort of thing without a lot of manual input. And then unfortunately with NYSEG, you can't go back more than 2 years worth of bills. And so we've been able to do a lot of work to try and rectify the previous year and a half, but it's a struggle to go much further. So moving forward, we've worked with the Brightly company and have had some conversations with NYSEG to ensure that what we're collecting will work moving forward, but it is a little bit difficult moving in the past.
I don't trust NYSEG or the energy companies at all on this. So how do you, so we also have a company that has controls in each building, right? Johnson Controls has every building?
Yeah.
For the county. Don't they track usage? Doesn't that system track it as well?
So that system is used to remotely control HVAC and to control lighting and to monitor how they're working. It hasn't been used to track the actual usage of the energy itself, to my knowledge.
Is it possible to do that?
It may be possible to do that. I can talk with Arel about it.
This problem with our NYSEG or our Gene or whoever we're getting power from, that will not just correct itself?
Yeah, and we've actually, prior to coming to the county, when I was extension, we were trying to work with the county to pilot something around the Internet of Things to do some remote collection of information on energy usage, and that kind of fell off, but that's something we could absolutely explore.
Yeah, for me, I mean, I know a lot of work's been done by the county over the last 5 or more years for this project. To not know the benefit of it is just wrong. It's not right for the people who pay the bills, which is the taxpayers. And I think that NYSEG, if they were really forced to, they could figure it out. Because they know they could go back 20 years if they had to. So I think that should happen, but thanks.
Other questions for Terry? Greg.
Will you, sorry, Terry, thanks. This was a great presentation. Love the video. Will you be around for the solar conversation, or are you headed out?
I'll be around for solar and the other one, downtown facilities, if that gets pulled.
Then I will save my comments for that. Thank you.
Which resolution is that, just so I know?
Resolution B.
B? Any other questions for Terry? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Go anywhere.
Okay, we're going to move to Resolution N now. So Resolution N has undergone a lot of changes, so let's be patient with each other to try to keep track of what version we're talking about. And we'll start out with Greg Mezzi moving it.
Thanks, Dan. I'd like to move, just so everybody's on the same page, it's Resolution N amended as recommended by the Budget, Capital, and Personnel Committee. That's the first one that'll be moved, and then I'll explain from there.
So that's in your red folder?
That's in your red folder.
And Shauna seconded it?
Do you want me to read it or no?
Sure, please.
Sure. Just Resolution N, ID 12319, amended as recommended by the Budget, Capital, and Personnel Committee, authorizing a partnership agreement with Point Broadband to expand high-speed internet service to unserved addresses in Tompkins County in the towns of Groton, Lansing, Ithaca, Danby, Newfield, Enfield, and Ulysses. I move.
Thank you, Shauna. Was that what your hand was up for? Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Back to you, Greg.
If I may propose a wholesale amendment, which is the proposed amendment, which you also have in your red folder. It does show what language we're proposing striking and what language is bold and underlined is what we're adding. So I'd like to propose this amendment as outlined in your red folder.
So is that proposed amendment friendly? Is there anyone that objects to it? Okay. That's the resolution on the floor now.
So the resolution that we have, and this was also detailed in the memo that you received late yesterday, which appreciate Nick and Katie for working diligently to put that together. As this was making its way through the committee process, the state funding offices that manage this process, or some of these processes, had released additional information, and the amendments in this resolution are to be in response to, as the memo outlined, the requirements of the grant funds that we're seeking, and also highlighted some additional language for the relationship that a potential county program with Point Broadband could also have with existing municipal broadband programs like the town of Dryden. So there's some timing issues as it relates to when Dryden and Caroline may find out about any potential funding that they may be awarded for their programming, and when our application would be due. So it was proposed that we make this as inclusive as possible and put some clarifying language in there so that we could have our best chance of receiving the funding. And I do want to make a mention really quick that Mark Meyerhofer from ECC Technologies, who's been our consultant helping navigate us through this process, is here, as well as Chuck Bartosh from Point Broadband is on the screen as well. So if there's any questions, I know that there's much better informed individuals in the room than I to answer those questions, but happy to navigate the conversation if needed.
Thank you. Mike Lane.
Greg, thank you for your email, by the way. It's my understanding the town has reviewed this and they're okay with that, the town of Dryden.
That's correct. The town of Dryden and Caroline had submitted a joint application. This was shared, I believe, by Dan to Caroline and by me to the town of Dryden, and they agree that this represents, all parties' interests are represented well, and they're in agreement with this.
Thank you.
Deborah.
So I want to be sure I understand. This means that their grants, Dryden, Caroline, and the Southern Tier Network, will be considered separately from any grants that we may apply for as a county for the rest of our municipalities, right?
Yeah, so if I can give a quick understanding, they're going after the MIP grant, which is the Municipal Infrastructure Program, and if they're successful, they will be then able to provide access to those underserved or unserved addresses within those two communities.
Right.
In the event that they're not successful in that application, we could look to Dryden Fiber to be a subcontractor with Point Broadband to continue to build out their municipal infrastructure, but be included in the county's county-wide program.
Which will be the subject of a different grant application.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Randy.
I have a question, but I was at a Enfield Town Board meeting. They passed a resolution basically stating that they really love Hafele, and they don't want anything that we do to affect Hafele because they really believe in their service. They've done studies on it, and most people really like Hafele and Enfield. So I just want to make sure that whatever we do doesn't interact with that, and they express that concern. I'm just sharing what they shared. So.
Nick, Katie, if you want to come up and add anything to this conversation.
Chuck might be the...
Chuck for this one.
Sure thing.
This was addressed at HED. Bob Lynch had raised the question. And Chuck, I don't know if you want to chime in to Randy's comment.
Yeah, so the actual, basically when we were putting together the project, both Ulysses and Enfield did not seem to me to be cost effective to have us do those two towns. So I approached Lee Hafele, who is, I think, down in the Caribbean at the time. But basically I called him and said, would you be willing to potentially partner with us and you guys just do that? We give you the money because it would be a lot cheaper for you to do it than for us to do it. And I want a cost-effective program. And I did the same thing with OTTC, talked to Paul Griswold from OTTC. We don't have actual agreements with that, which is why that's not in the resolution. You can't say we will do something unless we strike an actual agreement, but it was my instigation that we actually reached out to those two to do it. So you can be assured that we're going to try to do it. And I expect we will, to be perfectly honest. But there is one other factor that you have to keep in mind is because especially in the MIP program, so there's 3 phases with the MIP program. Dryden and Caroline applied for phase 1. Phase 3 is opened up to private entities that are partnered with counties, and that's the only configuration that they do. The state's basic contract will be with Point Broadband, not with the subcontractors. And in the end, that means that we're responsible for making sure that we make, that the projects are completed by the end of the project period, the build period, because it's very well defined when you have to be done. Mark can tell us what that date is. I forget if it's the end of 2025 or end of 2026.
End of 2026.
Yeah, it is 2026. Good, thanks. I was hoping that was right. And if for whatever reason they're not doing it, we may have to step in and do it. But it's not what we want to do. It doesn't make sense for me to frankly build 3 miles of fiber so I can hit 17 households in the middle of Enfield that Hafele just has to do a short extension for, as an example.
Thank you.
Did that answer your question well enough?
I think so. Deborah.
Wouldn't a simpler answer be that if they're already being served by Hafele, they're not unserved? And
That's not the problem. The problem is that there's a group of households that are not served in the middle of Hafley's territory. In order for us to serve them, we have to overbuild him, which I've got no interest in doing.
Right, okay. But
Unless we
nobody's
have
going to
to.
have to give up the service they already have. All right, thank you.
No one's going to have to give up the service they already have. If you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor.
Thank you, Barack.
Other questions or comments? Rich?
I'd like to say thank you for all the work on this resolution. And just for clarity, we're passing another resolution, or this one, that is funding a study, the engineering, but in a prior resolution, the door seemed to be kind of open to the county committing to putting in its own dollars. We're not doing that today. And if the grant is received beyond the Dryden grant, that would cover it. I assume that if we didn't get that grant, that we would be starting over and the legislature would have the chance to consider any amount it was committing to. I assume that, but I just would like to make sure it's said.
Yes, that's correct. And we would have to also come to the legislature to accept any grant. So any further authorization of funds would not be made without legislature approval.
Thank you.
Shauna?
I think there is potential as well that this $100,000 could also be covered under any potential grants moving forward.
Good. That is correct. We are going to ask the state, and I have talked to the state. They've not decided if they will, but we're definitely going to ask them to.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point to make. There is a scenario that's not a crazy scenario where this whole thing, this $7.5 million project, cost Tompkins County $0. That is a possible scenario. Greg.
And just so everybody who's not a part of HED or BCP, one of those two committees, this $100,000 is to essentially, the way and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, there was sort of a desktop study analysis done, and this is to do the field work and get out into the community and really understand the detailed engineering nuts and bolts of infrastructure and system needs and all that type of stuff. So that's what this specifically does, which is the next step that we need and with the application.
That's correct.
I was paying attention.
Good, everyone's nodding yes. Good. Other questions or comments? Okay, then we're going to go ahead and vote on Resolution N, the one that's labeled Proposed Amendment in your red folders.
Ann Corman.
Yes.
Mike Lane.
Yes.
Greg Mezzi.
Yes.
Veronica Pillar.
Yes.
Lee Shurtleff.
Yes.
Mike Sigler.
Yes.
Shauna Black.
Yes.
Travis Brooks.
Yes.
Randy Brown.
Yes.
Amanda Champion.
Yes.
Susan Curry.
Yes.
Deborah Dawson.
Yes.
Rich John.
Yes.
Dan Klein.
Yes.
14 ayes, unanimously adopted.
Excellent. Planning Department, thank you so much for your work on this. Mark, Chuck, thank you for coming to tonight's meeting. This is one of my favorite topics. Good might be about to happen.
Thank you. Cell service next?
Yes, cell service, yes. Were you listening to my phone calls today? All right, then we're going back to the regular order of the agenda, and the next up is report by County Administrator Lisa Holmes.
Thank you, Dan. My report tonight will be brief. Just wanted to say a few words about the budget process. We know, excuse me, the governor has announced at least a conceptual agreement on the state budget, but the budget itself has not yet been passed, to my knowledge. The fine details are still being hammered out. We are still planning on holding our budget retreat on April 30th. And we are still very much in the midst of crunching numbers. A couple of tidbits that I can report on, and I know that you're aware of somewhat stagnant sales tax revenues thus far in 2024. And we're also seeing an increase in estimated mandate costs for Department of Social Services, and they are landing primarily in childcare mandates, daycare, and Medicaid. So our early estimates there is a $1.3 million increase in those mandate costs. More to come, and like I said, we're still crunching the numbers and looking forward to budget retreat on April 30th.
Any questions or comments for Lisa? Deborah.
Yeah, one thing we did mention at BCP was that if the state budget for some reason isn't out by the end of April, we might want to just hold off on a budget retreat, because last year we had to have 2 of them, and nobody wants to do that.
I was going to ask the same question, Lisa. Do you have a cutoff date in mind of when the budget has to be here in order for us to process all that information?
I'll keep everyone posted. I'm watching the news, and they're predicting that by the end of this week, they're hoping to have a budget deal. If not, then by sometime mid next week, we'll make the call.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments for Lisa? Thank you. Next up, Acting County Attorney Holly Mosier.
Thank you. So as you know, 2 weeks ago I was on vacation, so I just thought I'd give you an update on what's been going on over the past week as I try to catch up with everything. I engaged with and assisted 14 of the county departments, worked with law enforcement on 2 juvenile delinquency investigations, had 11 court appearances, and today during lunch I did this fabulous webinar on using AI in legal research. It was pretty incredible what you're able to do now with the legal research and AI. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments for Holly? Thank you. Next up is Director of Finance, Lori Scarrett, coming to us remotely. Hi, Lori.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening. A quick update on the in-rem foreclosure process. We currently have 28 properties. 12 are residential, 16 are vacant or commercial. Last meeting, I think I told you we had 27. An additional one has been added. We plan to do the posting and tour of the properties on May 7th. The informational meeting is June 17th, and the auction will be June 24th. Also, I want to let you know that this week, myself and 2 staff members from finance are attending the New York Government Finance Officers Association Conference in Albany. And the beginning of May 1st through May 3rd, Drew and I will be attending the NYSEC County Finance School. And that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you. Questions or comments for Lori? All right. Have a good conference.
Thank you.
Are there any resolutions to be added to or withdrawn from the agenda? Okay, then let's go into the consent agenda. Consent agenda, resolutions and appointments to be voted on as a group unless any member of the legislature requests that a resolution or appointment be instead included separately and individually as part of the business of standing or special committees. For appointments, we have Kate from the for the Environmental Management Council, Kate Darfler as chair, and Daniel Antonioli, Village of Dryden seat. For the Library Board of Trustees, we have Christina Marie Brewington, member. And for the Water Resources Council, Peter Penniman, EMC member. Resolution A, budget adjustment, Department of Planning and Sustainability, Community Planning, American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, funding for broadband expansion work, ID 12304. From Planning, Energy, and Environmental Quality Committee, Resolution B.
Well,
Thank you.
thank you.
Resolution B has been pulled. Resolution C, Department of Recycling and Materials Management, 2024 Award of Contract, Waste Hauling and Disposal Services, ID 12343. From the Downtown Facilities Special Committee, Resolution D, authorization to accept Park Foundation funding for a community thermal energy network study for the DeWitt Park campus and future Center of Government building, ID 12340. And from the Housing and Economic Development Committee, Resolution E, Workforce Development and New York State Department of Labor 2024 Ancillary Agreement, ID 12299. Is there somebody that would move the consent agenda? Deborah moves, Veronica seconds. Have a vote, please.
Ann Corman,
Yes.
Mike Lane,
Yes.
Greg Mezzi,
Yes.
Veronica Pillar,
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff,
Yes.
Mike Sigler,
He's not on the screen anymore.
He's camping.
Black,
Yes.
Brooks,
Yes. Yes.
Amanda Champion,
Yes.
Susan Curry,
Yes.
Deborah Dawson,
Yes.
Rich John,
Yes.
Dan Klein,
Yes.
13 ayes. The consent agenda passes.
Thank you. All right, we're up to standing and special committees. First up is Facilities and Infrastructure Committee, Lee Shirtliff, Chair.
Facilities and Infrastructure will meet Thursday morning at 9 o'clock, and I thank Terry for giving the preview of the meeting.
Very good. Questions or comments for Lee? All right, thank you. Next up is Government Operations Committee, Amanda Champion, Chair.
Yeah, thank you very much. Government Operations met on Thursday, April 4th. We had another wonderful meeting. Lots of good stuff, a couple of resolutions that are on here, and we're kind of plowing through our list of things that we're going to try to cover this year. Just one comment, we are going to kind of take pieces of the charter and each month just have a chance to read it, talk about it, see if there's any changes that we would like to make going forward as we, in the next year, elections law is changing, as well as the number of legislators on this legislature. So kind of just having a chance to read through pieces of the charter and discuss that. So you're all welcome to join those conversations. And I will stop there because the main thing we want to talk about is our strategic plan updates. So should we do that or should I do the resolution first?
Whatever you prefer.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do, I see Karen Witchard is here from Barry Dunn, and welcome. And I guess I would just, in your packet, you know, you have the first draft, or it's not the first draft, there's been many drafts, but the first final draft. And I just would thank everybody who's been on the internal team, who has been meeting every other week to talk through all the different aspects of this and plan. And so I'm just going to say who those people are. So Katie Borgella and Megan McDonald from our planning department, Lisa Holmes, Norma Jane, Bridget Nugent, and Dominic Recchio from admin, Ruby Pulliam from HR, Charlene Holmes, Chief Equity and Diversity Officer, and Mr. Klein, Ms. Black, and myself from the legislature. And it's been a really good process. I've been really impressed with the staff who are just on top of these things and asking good questions and being present when some of the legislators were not present, and just doing really good work. So I appreciate all of that. So I think Karen has a presentation, but I'll just say, just to remind everybody, you know, we started this process a year and a half ago. Is that true? No, a year. When did we start this? In June of last year.
That sounds right.
Yeah, okay. And lots of different pieces of the puzzle. The legislature had a planning session that many of you were at. The senior staff had planning sessions, community forums, interviews, focus groups, surveys. Employees were involved, clients that the county serves were involved, the community was involved. It's been a very, deep and involved process and project. So here we are, and hi, Karen. Thanks for being here.
Great, thank you. And I have a brief slide deck I'm going to pull up and walk through, and then really want to spend the majority of the time referring to the handout that's in your packet around our objectives. So let me pull up our slide deck. Is everybody looking at that slide that says meeting agenda? Yes. I see Annie nodding.
Yes, we can see it.
Perfect. So what we want to walk through tonight is Amanda just did a great job going through the strategic plan process, but then going into some of the feedback we received from the community and employees from the core plan components, which is everything but the objectives that we'll talk about later, get your input. We'll walk through the draft objectives, not word by word, but really get your feedback on where they are, what you like, what changes may need to be made, and then walk through some next steps. So as we just talked about, we started this project in June, and really a significant amount of engagement with the community over the summer, which led all the way up to going back to the community in February and March, which got us to where we are today. And here we are. We took the initial draft to the Government Operations Committee, and now we are bringing it to you all for your feedback and input. So part of what we wanted to share with you is the community perspectives on mission, vision, values, priorities, and the goal statements. When we got those ready for community engagement, we went back to the clients that we spoke to in the fall around their perspectives. We went back to the employees that we spoke to. We issued another community survey. We issued an employee survey, and then Charlene was also able to host two robust community forums with historically marginalized communities to get the feedback on those core components. So here's what we found when we did that. First, we asked about the vision statement. Does it capture the impact of the services that Tompkins County provides to the community? So the draft vision statement you'll see there, all Tompkins County residents thrive in a supportive, healthy, and inclusive environment. You'll see the employee feedback from the survey on one side of the slide, the community on the other. There was really strong agreement that that's the right vision statement. One of the themes that came up from the focus groups was that the notion of safety was missing in all of its forms and facets. And then we heard that it was well stated. And finally, the last bullet point was that it's too aspirational. But as you all recall from our time together last fall, the vision statement is supposed to be aspirational. So what we did with that feedback is we tweaked just a little bit. You'll see the updated version is that all Tompkins County residents thrive in a supportive, healthy, safe, and inclusive environment. So we really heard the feedback around adding the notion of safety. So that's what's in the initial draft plan before you all this evening. The next question we asked is about the mission statement, and do you feel that it captures the county's purpose as an organization? This one was, people generally agreed that the draft met the purpose, but there was some pretty significant feedback in the open-ended responses about values-driven being unclear. Whose values? What does that mean? What does that look like? How do you translate that? Also, that exceptional is an aspirational word that belongs more in a vision statement and doesn't capture the purpose of the organization, and that core services were missing from this draft. So we took that feedback, and you'll see quite a bit more changes to the updated draft mission statement. The original one, you'll see Tompkins County provides exceptional value-driven services to meet diverse community needs. We tweaked it to say Tompkins County safeguards and enhances lives by providing services driven by the needs of the community. So still that notion that you all provide services driven by community need, but really took out some of the language that was unclear in our focus groups and from the open-ended responses on the community survey. Next, we asked about the core values, which, for those who don't have it right handy, are respect, accountability, integrity, equity, and stewardship. And so we said, are these the right core values? And also, is the diversity statement, does it work for the organization and the work that you all do for the community? We got really strong agreement that the core values were good, that they were the right values, and the diversity statement was important. For some folks, especially in the focus groups, the centers in the diversity statement was unclear. We spent a good bit of time talking about that feedback in the steering committee and decided to leave it as is because we really felt that that's how it should be phrased, that Tompkins County Centers Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And any confusion was really around engagement with staff and the community to articulate what exactly that means and how you provide your services. There was feedback that people was missing from the original stewardship core values, so you'll see in a minute where we've added that in. Others said they liked them as written. Transparency was something folks said that maybe we should consider adding. And then finally, Charlene facilitated, along with Dr. Christine Moses, some conversations around how important the order of those core values are. So we reflected that feedback and put the core values in the order that we heard from the community, that in order to have integrity and equity, respect and accountability have to go first. So here are those updated draft core values. So respect stayed the same, accountability stayed the same, integrity changed from what it was previously to build it out into the initial draft of what we tested with the community. Equity stayed the same from the initial draft. And stewardship, you'll see where we added human, financial, and environmental resources, that all three of those are important from a core value standpoint and how you provide your services and manage for the future. And then the diversity statement we left as is. And then finally, the strategic priority and goal statements. So the strategic priorities are organizational excellence, equitable service delivery, economic opportunity and quality of life, climate change mitigation and resiliency, and health and safety. And remember, those are the 4 to 6 areas of focus around how you align the objectives and eventually the performance measures and implementation of your strategic plan. So what we heard very loudly was that these are the right priorities. We also heard feedback in the open-ended responses in the survey and then from our focus groups that they're aspirational and that significant work needs to occur to reach each goal statement. Folks asked for a more direct reference to housing. There were some general comments about the ordering of the priorities, and really for a strategic plan, no one priority area really supersedes another. They're meant to be viewed holistically, and that road infrastructure was missing from the priority areas. So the changes that we have made there that you'll see in the bolded language is organizational excellence. We just tweaked a word. The original word was to create a collaborative, and instead changed it to foster based upon some feedback. Equitable service delivery stayed the same based upon what the initial draft that we took the community had. Economic opportunity, there were some changes around how to word certain things. So you'll see an inclusive and sustainable local economy as being important to that goal statement, to advance living wage jobs, not just jobs with living wages, but those living wage jobs. And then finally, articulating the importance of appealing and attainable housing, not just affordable housing, but attainable housing. Climate change mitigation and resiliency stayed the same, and then health and safety stayed the same from the way we presented it to the community for the feedback session. So I'll pause there to see if there's any feedback from you all on how the goal statements are worded, core values, any of those items before we start walking through the objectives.
Any questions or comments for Karen? Deborah.
I guess the only concern I have, I have no argument with the strategic priorities and goal statements, but it does concern me that we don't have any statement in here about how the county's going to pursue these priorities to the extent that it's fiscally possible or responsible to do so. I don't want to put us in a position where we're creating expectations that might be beyond our ability to deliver within the bounds of our fiscal ability and responsibility. So that would be the only concern I really have. it's like when we passed our energy policy. I'm trying to remember what exactly we called that, but we talked about how we had a goal of reaching carbon neutral facilities as soon as was fiscally reasonable or responsible to do so. And I think just to temper expectations that might be created by stating what our priorities are, we might want to include some language to that effect in our strategic plan.
Karen, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, sure can. That's a great point. So other pieces of this plan, once we get this initial draft closer to final and get your feedback tonight, the full plan document will have an introduction. It'll talk about why strategic planning. It'll have a letter from the chair, and it'll talk about implementation and putting the plan into action. And all of those areas is normal and recommended to put in that expectation, is that not everything can happen at once, and these items will require resources and prioritization. So we can absolutely, if the rest of the board feels the same way, make sure that we get that inserted into those other pieces that you all haven't seen yet.
Thank you. I just think that that's probably prudent. It's nothing against our statement of priorities. It's just, please don't expect us to deliver all of this and bankrupt ourselves in the process.
Randy.
Yes, thank you for the presentation and the effort you did to collect as much respondent information as you could. Can you tell how many people from the public and how many people that were employees actually responded to the survey, the request?
For the public, it was just over 300, which was good. We got some good feedback, and there's a lot of consensus. I don't remember the employee number off the top of my head, but I can get that to you guys later.
Thank you.
Greg.
Yeah, under economic opportunity and quality of life, we use the word sustainable local economy. Are we referring to an economy that can sustain its ways or what it's doing, or are we talking energy efficient, green? Just trying to understand the word sustainable in that context.
So I would say, and I would ask any of the steering team or folks, but from doing that, it was really about a sustainable local economy for people. This whole goal area is about making sure people can exist in the community, have attainable housing, have a good job. So an economy that's diverse to meet the different needs so people can live a fulfilling life within your community. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. I just, sometimes the interchangeability of that word these days, it can be a little confusing. I just wanted to make sure we're on the same page.
Any other questions or comments about this draft strategic plan? Karen, did you have anything more for us?
Yeah, I wanted to walk through quickly the objectives document, which is in the handout, or should have been in your agenda packet. So if there's any feedback, and I'll just quickly go through the different priorities. So organizational excellence, the objectives that you all see there are really about how to make sure the organization is best equipped to meet the service delivery needs. So if there's any feedback you all had on those objectives, either now or later, I would like to know. And I don't know if it's best to go through priority by priority and pause, or just in whole, however you all would like to walk through that.
Does anybody have any questions or comments about the objectives? Deborah.
Sorry. I do think, I understand that you wanted to put the attainable language into the housing goal, but I do think it should be appealing, broadly affordable, and attainable. Because affordability has been such a, I mean, it's just a drumbeat that we have heard for years, and rightly so.
Karen, did you want to respond to that?
No, I think that is good feedback, and that's something we can absolutely incorporate into the next draft. And then you'll see some of the objectives under there do speak to that. So curious if there's any feedback in that priority area around those objectives about the programs and solutions to encourage a housing system that meets the needs, the partnership with developers and other agencies to increase the supply, and then some of the other items in that objective area from an objective standpoint. Excuse me, that goal area from an objective standpoint.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, Karen, I'm not seeing anything in chambers here. Do you have anything more for us?
Nope, I'll just say next steps, we'll get any feedback that you all have and hope to bring back what we would call a final draft for adoption in May, if you are comfortable with those objectives. And then we'll be working with staff to the point around implementation planning to get all that done through the end of May.
Well, thank you so much for the update and summary.
Great, thank you, everybody.
Amanda, back to you. I think you still have one more resolution.
Yes. Yeah, let's see. Resolution F, authorization to submit a 2025, wait, we have an amended one.
That's
Am
right,
I
in the red
moving-
folders.
Yes,
Please.
okay, sorry.
It's okay.
So, yeah, Resolution F in your folders. So the title is actually Appropriation from Contingent Fund, Clerk of the Legislature, Historic Data Migration.
Is there a second? Rich seconds.
And there have been some changes, which you'll see on that. And I think if there's questions or if Katrina wants to speak to it, that would be better than me.
This is for funding for historic data migration from MinuteTrack into new software Legistar. And we originally were going to just submit an over-target request, but after it went through Budget, Capital, and Personnel Committee, Norma recommended that we, and Lori agreed, that we take the money from contingent fund if the legislature so pleases.
Okay, questions or comments? Rich.
I support the resolution. This is a one-time expense, and after discussion at Government Operations, it's pretty clear that we want to do this the right way, that we have one of the most transparent systems for the public to see what we're doing, and we don't want to lose any of that functionality while we're transitioning.
Any other discussion? Okay, then let's have a vote on Resolution F on the amended version from the red folders.
Ann Corman?
Yes.
Mike Lane?
Yes.
Greg Mezzi?
Yes.
Veronica Pillar?
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff?
Yes.
Shauna Black?
Yes.
Travis Brooks?
Yes.
Randy Brown?
Yes.
Amanda Champion?
Yes.
Susan Curry?
Yes.
Deborah Dawson?
Yes.
Rich John?
Yes.
Dan Klein?
Yes.
13 ayes, resolution adopted.
Good, thank you. Amanda, anything else from GO?
Nope, thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Planning, Energy, and Environmental Quality Committee, Ann Corman, Chair.
Thank you very much. Our committee met on Thursday, April 11th, and some of the updates were already covered in Terry Carroll's great presentation earlier. Let's see, a couple other things. One of the resolutions we passed will be on the May legislature meeting agenda, but I just wanted to mention it here. It was regarding the continuation of the modifications to the agricultural district number 2, which is on the west side of Cayuga Lake. And that passed 3-2. There was some discussion about farmers' rights and the right to farming versus trying to balance that with environmental issues and watershed issues. Let's see, the planning department has hired their new housing planner, so that's good news. The recycling department said that there was an increase, or they predicted an increase in the average commodity revenue. So that is good. That's for our recycling materials. So they're predicting a higher rate coming in this year, and they're predicting that is also going to continue to rise. And so let me go on to the resolutions next. So the next one is Resolution B, which is in your packet. I'm sorry, it's in your red folder. It was revised, and so it's Resolution B, ID 12353. And this is authorizing a lease option agreement with the New York State Energy and Research Development Authority, NYSERDA, for approximately 65 acres at the Caswell Road closed landfill for the purpose of developing a solar array and battery energy storage. And you can see highlighted in the resolution some of the changes with the amount of acres and the price, the revenue. And also on the second page, you'll see that we added an amendment. And so I'm going to read that amendment. It was resolved further that any lease revenue generated from the Caswell Road closed landfill, solar array, and battery, out of breath here. So battery energy storage to be placed into the Green Facilities Capital Program. Account number HB 1613.42270, other revenue. And I'll let other folks from the committee, if they want to chime in, talk about that, but some of the...
Ann, can you pause for a moment, please? Ann, we didn't have a second yet. I just want to get it seconded.
Oh, you need a second.
Please,
Okay.
Greg Mezzi seconds. Thank you. Continue.
Thank you. And so that amendment was suggested, moved by Greg Mezzi. And so the reason I personally supported that being added to that resolution is because we've seen over the last few years where the prices have doubled for our green facility updates, the things that we want to do, so essentially we're only able to do half of what we wanted to do. So for a lot of our green initiatives and climate programs, we're really not being able to do anywhere near what we had planned. And as was previously talked about, like as we can afford things. And so I think this is a way to put a little bit of money back in there since it's a green energy project. So I'm hoping that folks agree with that. Some of the other conversation was that it possibly the revenue be put in, just I think the general fund. Another item that came up was, could it be put towards the yearly expense of the leachate disposal for that decommissioned landfill? And so Norma gave us some numbers. The leachate disposal cost per year for just that landfill is $152,000 to $184,000. The yearly revenue for right now this contract, if we pass it, is for 20 years for the revenue from the solar panels, and that would be revenue approximately $134,000 a year. So it wouldn't be quite enough for the leachate disposal, but I just wanted to give you those figures there.
Discussion, Greg.
Yeah, Ann, thanks for the recap of the meeting and the discussion. I support the resolution. I think it's important to highlight that our green capital program is currently without funding allocation in our capital program, and I'm seeing nods that is correct. So we have a desire for those phases, but currently don't have any money allocated to those initiatives in the capital program. Lisa, is that correct?
That's correct.
So I saw this as an opportunity. As an enterprise unit, we've and materials, sir. I always blank on the name.
Recycling and Materials Management.
Thank you. Recycling and Materials Management, for the better part of 30 years, has covered the expense of leachate disposal. Right? We have an opportunity to take a green project, a green investment, and reinvest that to further grow our green capital program. And it's already a program that's not funded. The leachate disposal has been included in fees and other expenses and other calculations and budget for, again, the better part of 30 years. So unless we're going to see a drastic reduction to the taxpayer because we're including this revenue in an enterprise unit, I see greater value of contributing the funds from this potential lease to our green capital program, because what that could do exponentially to cover a bond payment for those projects, to be invested in something, we can leverage those dollars to advance an initiative that's currently unfunded, which has been a large priority for our community and for this legislature. So I really, really, really would encourage everybody to vote for this as amended. I'm all for reducing costs and expenses, but I feel like the leachate disposal conversation and the expense that brought happened sometime in the late 80s or 90s when that landfill was closed. And this is an opportunity for us to invest a small fraction of what it will take for us to achieve our green energy goals and green capital goals. So I hope we can move this forward as amended and not make any further amendments in the process.
Randy.
Geez, Greg, you changed my mind. I'm kidding. Nice try, though. I look at this as a separate entity. So the solar panels would not have been built if we didn't have a landfill. And the only reason that it's being proposed and all this money is coming in to do this is because the landfill exists, which is, and it will continue to exist for decades beyond. It'd be like taking the corrugated revenue or the other revenue that we get through this entity and saying, oh, we're going to use it over there. This is money that comes directly because of this entity, and there are many projects within the Recycle and Solid Waste project, and we have big plans to reduce the cost reduce the waste that's being sent throughout the landfills, which we voted to not extend closing on, and they can use the money for a lot of ways to also improve our waste reductions, which are very aggressive. So to mix the money to say, okay, well, you know, it's a landfill, and you're getting rent you're literally getting rent for that landfill. You know, and that's just the way it's going to be. And to say, well, no, we're going to use it over here. And if we want to put money towards a green capital program, we have reserves. And I'm for that. I'm for spending more money on those programs. But to mix the money to say, well, this one we're going to take and put over here, but this one we're going to leave over there, makes no sense to me at all. And I don't think legally we should do it because there's a separate entity that is involved here. It's not Tompkins County. It's its own enterprise fund or fee-structured entity. And to take money from that entity and then put it someplace else just doesn't seem right to me.
Deborah.
Yeah, I don't think it is an enterprise fund issue. And we move money around all the time. And I fully support Greg's and Peake's amendment. And I think it's a great idea to have sources of revenue that fund our rather ambitious green facilities projects.
Rich.
I think my question was answered, but just, I support the proposal. But in the future, if we needed to reallocate the money elsewhere, we could do that. There's no restriction, right? Yeah, then I'm in support.
Mike Lane.
Over the years, we've had many discussions about lock boxes for revenue. And to Randy's point, we've often said that we shouldn't do that, that if we need the money for something, we can pull it out and use it out of fund balance. But in this case, I'm going to vote for this. I think it's an important issue. We're behind on our green facilities plan. And who knows how much this thing is going to generate. But we just can't put lock boxes on everything. We have to be able to have the flexibility as the county legislature to move money as necessary from area to area. So that's my feeling about this. And I do want to say, Greg, actually we've talked about leachate a lot over the years since it's set up, particularly after the man was killed when the leachate truck tipped over and killed the cab driver at Route 13. We actually looked at trying to see whether we could work with the village of Freeville and pipe it over there to Freeville. So I'm glad something's happening about leachate, but it's been a difficult issue.
Ann.
Thank you. I wanted to add to what Randy was saying, and I think part of the reason that this NYSERDA is putting this PV system there is because we have the land. But to me, 75% of the reason or thereabouts is because the state and NYSERDA has really aggressive goals to do green and renewable energy projects. So I just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Any other discussion on this resolution? Okay, let's have a vote, please.
Ann Corman?
Yes.
Mike Lane?
Yes.
Greg Mezzi?
Yes.
Veronica Pillar?
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff?
No.
Shauna Black?
Yes.
Travis Brooks?
Yes.
Randy Brown?
No.
Champion?
Yes.
Susan Curry?
Yes.
Deborah Dawson?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Dan Klein?
Yes.
11 ayes, 2 noes. Resolution adopted.
Okay, Ann, I believe you have another resolution.
Yes. Let's see. Packet page 53 is the next one, and that's Resolution G. It's a budget adjustment from County Administration Soil and Water Conservation District, pending Planning, Energy, and Environmental Quality and Budget, Capital, and Personnel Committee's actions on April 11th, 2024. And this, you might remember, this was pulled, or similar resolution was pulled last month, so it could go back and be reworked a little bit. And I'm going to put administration on the spot or somebody from BCP to explain why this is a newer, better way to help soil and water with their budget.
So I'll jump in and then Norma. So I think that this, the desired impact here was to make this an administrative function that through a budget adjustment, so that it could just be, it could happen through a budget adjustment on an annual basis to provide the soil and water with the upfront funding that is needed, and not have it be a gift, so to speak. But I would ask Norma and Lori to please fill in if there's more detail there. But I think that was the intent of this, so that it wouldn't require a resolution each time. It would be a budget adjustment.
Yeah, and I'd just like to add that it also cleans up a few other things. So you have a budget for soil and water, which is 8730, and that normally has your annual contribution. So this will be shown there in addition to that, as well as the county makes a contribution for the audit expense for the soil and water, as well as the workers' comp assessment fees. So all of those will be moving over in this budget amendment to that 8730 account, which is all soil and water, so that everybody can see it and understand where that money is.
We still need a second on this resolution, I'm sorry. Veronica seconds, thank you. Further discussion. Deborah.
Yeah, I'm going to be a grumpy old woman. We have traditionally lent Soil and Water $200,000, and then they pay it back at the end of the year, and then we lend it to them again. And the reason for this, of course, is because of their cash flow issues with their grants. My understanding is that we didn't want to do that anymore, not only because we didn't want to have a resolution every year, but because it wasn't really proper for us to be lending them money. And it just seems to me that changing what we call it to a contribution rather than a loan doesn't really address the problem. So my inclination is just to somehow or another set up a permanent fund for them of the $200,000 that they could keep using instead of going through this, I don't know, charade of we contribute $200,000 and they contribute it back. So I'm going to vote no again for this, but you all are free to do what you want to do. I'm not going to argue about it.
Mike Lane.
And I hear Deb, but I think we should do this because I don't think we should just give them a pot of money and say that they can just use it. I think we need, based on the history of soil and water conservation service over the years, I think it's important that we have some oversight, financial oversight, to make sure that the grant program gets processed properly.
Shauna.
I guess I would like to hear from Lori and Lisa and see what the thought was in bringing this resolution forward versus setting up their own fund balance.
In terms of providing them additional funding to do that, that came up as a kind of a brainstorm idea at the Budget Capital Personnel Committee, but that would require committing funds on the part of the organization. So we did not, we didn't cross that bridge. We just found this kind of administrative way to address the issue. That is a legitimate way of addressing it, as well as committing those funds, and then we wouldn't go through this each year.
I guess would this, or could this be a conversation for our upcoming budget so that it is actually part of future budgets so that it's part of target? Or I'm questioning, Deborah brought forth the legality of it and making it clean. Obviously none of us want to do anything that is an accounting faux pas or to get audited and have them question this. Are we confident that this is accounting-wise the right thing to do?
So I am uncomfortable with it, not the budget transfer piece of it, but the contribution in and out. It lags by a year, so the county is indeed making a contribution to the soil and water that we're, not getting the interest earnings on, for example, or being able to use for other things. That is the use of fund balance. When we talk about having a healthy fund balance, we're using fund balance to cover that for a year because they pay it back the following year. That started many, many years ago, so there's always a one-year lag, but every year they pay it back. So I would be more comfortable if we just said, okay, don't pay it back this year and we're done. Use that $200,000, set up your fund balance, do your thing, and stop this going back and forth all the time, because they are paying it back. They are paying that $200,000 back, and they're not paying it over time as money comes in. They pay it yearly. So it just seems to me it would make more sense and reduce a lot of work on our part and be a little cleaner in case of an audit if we were not doing this contribution in and out.
Thank you.
Norma?
just wanted to follow up, and I certainly work with Lori, so however this works out best for everybody. But I have talked to John, and he understands now, because it's not been a requirement in the past, that these funds have to be reimbursed in the same year as they have been used. The reason for bringing it forward the way it is just in the instance where folks change positions. There's funding now sitting in a outside agency that the county has given them. And let's just say somebody else comes in and doesn't know what that funding is for. Does that set us up later on to not have those controls over that particular pot of funds? So of course it's your decision. I just want to make sure that's the reason why we're recommending that it gets put in the budget, so that it's something we can track annually. And then again, the agreement would be that he has to pay it back in the same year that it's being used.
Greg.
Sorry, I thought Rich was going before me. I blanked for a second.
We can switch if you want.
Can you come back to me, please? I apologize.
Rich.
This is a fascinating discussion. I come out of it thinking, well, we certainly want to support soil and water. We want to figure out a way to do this. I think we're uncomfortable with it the way it is now. My feeling is I support the resolution right today, but maybe on April 30th at budget retreat, we should add a $200,000 thinking about how we fix this in our budget next year.
Randy. Oh, sorry, Greg.
Sorry, it all came flooding back to me after after Rich's comments. Do we give them the 200 all at once, or do they draw down as they need? It's just all 200 at once.
All at once.
Yeah, then I would, I mean, the resolution to clean things up today is fine, but I would tend to be more involved of giving them a one-time 200 and being done. You know, Mike, to your earlier point, I don't know how this creates financial oversight other than we just have sort of a string at the table, but we don't really ever get, we're not auditing them, we're not doing anything. We're just, if you get the 200 today and we get the 200 tomorrow, then we're satisfied. So I'd much rather just give them the one-time 200, let them set up a fund, and let them know that they need to manage that properly. And if they don't, there's not an opportunity to come back and, I mean, there is always an opportunity to come back and re-up, but you know that it'll be a much more difficult conversation at that point.
Randy.
Yes, both Veronica and I are on the Soil and Water Board, and we review the finances in the statements and all the bills they pay every month. And I'm pretty good at finance, and frankly, I found it a little confusing because most of it's grant focused, and a lot of grants coming down from various entities, and then these grants are going to farmers or other people, and a lot of this is they have to pay the expense before they get reimbursed, and also the funds that come in, and because they have cash, it's restricted. You know, so it's restricted for very specific grants, and it can't be spent for the day-to-day operations of the business. So I think we're getting a better grip on that. I think that we can definitely bring this up and discuss it. I think it's a good idea to look at the total budget. I'm not really clear exactly how much money the county actually does provide to the soil and water, so it'd be good to share that, besides this extension of $200,000. So I don't know if we're funding them with something or not. I just don't know how much. But I think we're learning and we get a good grip on it, and we'll definitely discuss that with the rest of the people. So.
Any other discussion on this resolution? Okay, let's have a vote, please.
Ian Corman?
Yes.
Mike Lane?
Yes.
Mezzi?
Yes.
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff?
Yes.
Black?
Yes.
Chris Brooks?
Yes.
Randy Brown?
Yes.
Amanda Champion?
Yes.
Curry?
Yes.
Lawson?
No.
Rich John?
Yes.
Dan Klein?
Yes.
12 ayes, 1 no, resolution adopted.
Okay, thank you, everybody. It is now 7:40. We're going to take a 10-minute break. See you soon.
So Dan, you want me to do the last resolution later?
Yes, please, after the break. You'll be first up.
Okay.
Okay, we are back in session, and we're going to pick up where we left off, which is the Planning, Energy, and Environmental Quality Committee, Ann Corman, Chair, and we are up to Resolution H.
That's right, Dan. This is packet page 54. I think this one will go a lot quicker. This is authorization to accept New York State non-agricultural, non-point source planning grant for a 6 Mile Creek stream corridor assessment pending Planning, Energy, and Environmental Quality Committee action on April 11th, 2024, and I so move.
Is there a second? Veronica seconds. Ann, do you have more to say?
Just this is a grant to accept a grant to help with planning for the stream corridor, so it's pretty simple, I think.
Okay, we have Mike Sigler.
Hey, I'm just wondering, is this the stream corridor through the city or is it more upstream? I only ask because of the whole, the flood maps changing, and I know that the city has a lot of plans for whether they come to fruition or not, the streams, particularly 6 Mile Creek. So I just didn't know if those two were in conjunction or not.
It doesn't say here, it just says erosion and sediment control, City of Ithaca, as it affects Ithaca's intermunicipal drinking water. It will compile existing field data, so I don't think it says exactly. Not on what I have here.
Okay, thanks.
I'm looking at the memo, and it says it's to prevent sediment from impacting the City of Ithaca drinking water supply. That sounds upstream to me. Katie, do you want to come up?
Oh, I didn't see Katie there.
Hello. I have Darby on speed dial here. As she said, it's located upstream of the city water plant, not in the city. I couldn't understand Mike's question, so I didn't really hear it.
I think that was the question. Is this upstream or down in the city?
Darby could.
That was the question. No, you answered it. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Katie. Any other discussion about this resolution? Okay, let's have a vote on Resolution H, please.
Ann Corman?
Yes.
Mike Lane?
Yes.
Greg Mezzi?
Yes.
Veronica Pillar?
Yes.
Shirtliff?
Yes.
Mike Sigler?
Yes.
Shauna Black?
Yes.
Travis Brooks?
Yes.
Randy Brown?
Yes.
Amanda Champion?
Yes.
Susan Curry?
Yes.
Deborah Dawson?
Yes.
Rich John?
Yes.
Yes.
14 ayes, resolution adopted.
Anything else from
Right,
Planning
and
Energy? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, just a couple things, Dan. Just to remind folks, since it's Earth Day coming up, that there's Earth Days and environmental different activities throughout the county, and Saturday the 20th, there's one in Trumansburg with music and food at the Farmers Market in Trumansburg, an electric vehicle show, and a highway cleanup, a whole bunch of things, family activities. It expands each year. The Saturday after that, there's a cleanup at Jacksonville Park. And I just also wanted to remind folks, it's tangentially related because it has to do with our park system, that there's an opening reception that I believe we're all invited to, the centennial anniversary of the New York State Park Systems at 5 to 7 tomorrow at the History Center on the Commons. And our next meeting for Peak is Monday, May 30th at 10 a.m.
Good, thank you. Any other questions or comments for Peak? For Ann? All right. Next up is the Community Recovery Fund Advisory Committee, and I really don't have a report. There are some questions brewing in the background, but there's really nothing to report on yet. Okay, we're moving on to the Budget, Capital, and Personnel Committee. Mike Lane, Chair.
We did have a meeting on Thursday, April 11th, and a lot of resolutions have already been talked about that came through a couple of committees, but I wanted to mention a few things. We talked about the scheduling for the expanded budget committee, and as Deborah pointed out earlier, there's a possibility that we may need to change our retreat date, budget retreat date, from April 30th should information not be forthcoming from the state on the budget. Hopefully they've wrapped things up there enough so we'll get that information. It's awfully hard to schedule these full meetings with the legislature, so I know no one really wants to have to make a change at this point. But stay tuned, and Lisa will keep us advised on that. Heaven only knows what's in this state budget and how it's going to affect our budget, particularly things like the pensions, whether there'll be pension reforms, whether there'll be health insurance issues, and certainly Medicaid. We know that's going to hurt us. So stay tuned. We also discussed about, whether in September, October, we can go back to the schedule we used to have where we were able to have all of the departments come in and have some face time with short presentations for all of us. Last year, because of the late state budget, we had to push our budget process about at least 2 weeks later, wasn't it, into September. So there were abbreviated presentations by only some of the departments, those having over target requests that they wanted to discuss. I talked about last time the direct report legislator teams that Human Resources, working with us on the 360 review of our 4 direct reports, is looking for, so that we can, beginning July 1, look forward to helping and working with each of these reports as far as goals and seeing what progress is being made throughout the year. Our commissioner, I don't know whether she's here or not.
Yeah,
but
she's.
Ruby, do you want to speak any more about how this is going to work prospectively? You talked about it at the budget committee.
Good evening, everyone. With the direct reports, what we're trying to do different from before is to have a performance appraisal program versus a year-end review. And for that, we wanted to assign basically each direct report to a group of legislators who would be available for mid-year check-ins, for discussion about any issues prior to a year-end review, rather than waiting to the end of the year to find out if there are issues or if there's a problem. So we had some volunteers. I think Mike has a list of a few names.
I have a whole list I'm going to
you have
announce
a whole
here in a minute.
Great. But this is more, it's in line with the way performance reviews should be done as a program versus a one-time event. So we're just trying to move along and use best practices with what we have. And that way all direct reports can be evaluated rather than staggering 2 per year.
And it's going to work out pretty well with the new county attorney coming on and eventually the new county administrator.
Yes, they will get to be our pilot programs with our initial dialogue, where we will have our expectations set out, written out, and then together we'll have a dialogue as far as what specific goals that they will accomplish during the year.
Thank you. Any questions about that before I read the teams here? And I have reviewed this with, given Dan Klein a chance to look at this as well. So I had 3 people actually request to be assigned to a team, but most people said, put me where you want or where you need me. And so I went through and I put this list together. Hopefully people will be satisfied with it. There'll be 2 4-member teams because there's 14 of us and 2 3-member teams. For the administrator, I have Dan Klein, Shauna Black, Susan Curry, and myself. For the Director of Finance, I have Deborah Dawson, Lee Shirtliff, Veronica Pillar, and Travis Brooks. For the County Attorney, I have Rich John, Mike Sigler, and Amanda Champion. And for the Clerk of the Legislature, I have Randy Brown, Greg Mezzi, and Ann Corman. And I will ask the clerks to send this list out so everybody has it. We just got it typed up this afternoon. With that report, I'm glad to take any questions, and then we've got some a couple of resolutions.
Questions for Mike Lane?
Donna, was there anything else we want to add?
I don't think so. Thank you.
Okay, Mike, you're on.
All right, we've got Resolution I, adopting a basic employer paid life insurance and accidental death and dismemberment policy for all eligible employees. That's ID 12351, and I'm moving the amended version that's in your packet, which reduces the cost because there's only 6 months left this year. So it would be a contingent request of $35,820 and not a contingent request of $71,640. If I get someone to move that, I'll speak to it. Travis, seconded by Deborah. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's fine. Were you not moving it?
Huh?
Didn't you move it?
Yeah, I should have.
That's fine. So, Mike, you moved it. And
I'm talking to myself.
No problem.
I shouldn't have done that. Apology.
Who would like to second it? Travis seconds. Thank you.
All right. I think it's so important, and I think the Budget Committee talked about this, and Shauna particularly brought this up, that it's so important that we demonstrate to our employees their value to us. We're having trouble with recruitment, we're having trouble with retention, and for not a lot of money, we could provide this $50,000 benefit to our employees. And hopefully that will just be one more thing that we can offer when we hire people, and it's also something for our existing employees to show our appreciation. So, I don't know, Shauna, did you want to say anything more?
I just want to say thank you to Sarah Thomas in Human Resources. She did a great job at the presentation. She's also had information sessions for employees. And I'm actually really excited about this benefit specifically. I think many employers in our county offer this. And the fact that we're paying up to a certain amount, I think can really help some families of our employees, especially in their time of need. So I'm glad we can do this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shauna.
Was there somebody online that wanted to speak? No. Greg?
Just to clarify, this resolution that was moved, was this the one that was adopted out of committee as amended, or is this a replacement for the one that was adopted in committee?
I moved the one that's in the folder entitled Amendment submitted by Legislator Lane.
The difference was that the $71,640 was for the full year, what it would cost, and since we're prorating and starting in July, it's only going to be for half a year. We'll have to add it to our budget to target this year.
Any other discussion? Okay, let's have a vote.
Ann Corman?
Yes.
Mike Lane?
Yes.
Greg Mezzi?
Yes.
Veronica Pillar?
Yes.
Liff?
Yes.
Mike Sigler?
Yes.
Shauna Black?
Yes.
Yes.
Travis Brooks?
Yes.
Randy Brown?
Yes.
Amanda Champion?
Yes.
Susan Curry?
Yes.
Deborah Dawson?
Yes.
Rich John?
Yes.
Dan Klein?
Yes.
14 ayes, resolution adopted.
Very good.
The other one I have, Mr. Chair, is Resolution J, Contingent Fund Request, Human Resources Department, Professional Services, ID 12350, and I do move that.
Is there a second? Shauna seconds. Do you have anything more you wanted to say about it?
No, except that this was some money we needed for professional services. It was, I think this was like 16,000. I haven't got it right here in front of me. We certainly want to go ahead with that.
48,000.
I'm sorry.
Page 57.
It's in the other half of the packet.
Yes.
Okay, that's my problem. 48,000 from contingency.
Discussion, Rich.
Yeah, just for background, we had a good discussion about this at Budget, Capital, and Personnel, and I asked the question to our commissioner, is this an indication of civil service sort of breaking down, and she said, no, this is getting better, that this is allowing some more flexibility into the system, that you have people that work for a long period of time and they can't take a civil service exam, and so they are living in limbo, or working in limbo, I guess is the better term. And what this allows is that if somebody is employed for a certain period of time and there just isn't an exam, you can get them in and accept them as full-time or permanent employees. Did I say that right, Ruby? This is a good thing.
Close. It's a great thing.
Okay.
It's a great thing. This is an initiative that the State Civil Service Department is allowing us. We asked for an expanded program. It was a pilot program last year, and they expanded it this year. But so far, we've been able, during the first round, we were able to get 15 positions submitted to the state through public hearings to give the employees who've been provisional for 2 or more years permanent status after the program, the 12-month program. We have identified over 30 for the second round, and we're working on the third round. But it's a lot of work to do, but we want to do the best we can to get as many titles in the program as we can before the deadline.
Any further discussion? Travis.
Well, this is great news. As a civil service employee for 25 years, I've been stuck in limbo 3 times waiting for a test. And all 3 times, the shortest was 1.5 years. I wouldn't have had a job if I didn't, 2 of them score in the top and 1 pass. So this is great because it really is it's a terrible feeling kind of just sitting there waiting. Like you build your career, you do your work, and there's no guarantees down the road. So this is really good.
Any other discussion? Okay, let's have a vote on Resolution J, please.
Incorman.
Yes.
Mike Lane.
Yes.
Greg Mezzi.
Yes.
Veronica Pillar.
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff.
Yes.
Mike Sigler.
Yes.
Shauna Black.
Yes.
Travis Brooks.
Yes.
Randy Brown.
Yes.
Amanda Champion.
Yes.
Susan Curry.
Yes.
Deborah Dawson.
Yes.
Rich John.
Yes.
Dan Klein.
Yes.
14 ayes, resolution adopted.
Very good. Mike, anything else from your committee?
Just a couple of items. The 25-year club is going to be on May 30th at Lake Watch. Put that on your calendars. We were told that we now have 780 employees, 300 election workers, and 42 part-time. Is that what we're talking about? There was a term that they used. Anyway,
It's the Youth Employment, JTPA.
JTPA, okay. So that's where we are. And last meeting, we reappointed Roxanne Buck as TC3 trustee, and she sent us a thank you card. I'll just pass it around.
Any last questions for Budget, Capital, and Personnel Committee? All right. Thank you, Mike. Next up, Workforce, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee. Veronica Pillar, Chair.
Thank you. Workforce Diversity and Inclusion Committee has not met since our last meeting here. We are next meeting on April 24th, Wednesday next week at 3 p.m. Agenda to be released tomorrow.
You any questions for Veronica? Okay. Next up, Public Safety Committee. Rich John, Chair.
Thank you, Dan. The Public Safety Committee has not met since our last meeting. We will be meeting on the 23rd, so in 1 week at 1 o'clock here in Chambers. I anticipate we're going to have some discussion about basic safety provisions at the DSS and at our shelter. And also, we're going to be considering a resolution to hire a consultant to look at the reimagining public safety program and where we want to go with that at the end of our 3-year pilot. The only other thing I'd mention is our jail numbers. We're at 59 with 2 board outs.
Questions for Rich? Okay, thank you. Downtown Facilities Special Committee, Randy Brown, Chair.
Yes, thank you. We had a meeting on April 9th, and it was a fairly quick meeting. We had one resolution that went to already for the grant that we received from Park Foundation, and as Mike mentioned, we'd like to thank them for helping with that, for doing the expiration on the test well for geothermal. And then the other half of that comes from NYSERDA, and then the county is expending about $30,000 roughly for that test. And that's going to take about 5 to 6, 7 months to find out where we are. We talked about parking and looking at that, and looking at the lot over on the 400 block of Otago Street and how that fits into the scheme of things. And they are working on some type of schematics for that parking area to see where that goes, whether it's temporary or permanent. The RFQ, request for qualifications, will go out before our next meeting in May. We talked about that some and how it's being distributed to all the entities that we want to see have an opportunity at doing architectural and schematic work. We talked about the State Historic Preservation Office, and we actually had a meeting with them on the 10th with Susan, myself, Planning Administration, to get their take on their requirements for what we're doing. That was an interesting meeting, and we're reviewing what they suggested to us. There's an online application that the planning department's working on now for that. One of the big issues is the fact that we want to remove 3 buildings. They're in the historic district, and whether they're conforming or not conforming, and what that actually means. And then also, what grants are available through this State Historic Preservation Office, and whether we can apply for them, and what restrictions or requirements are involved in that. And we're looking for feedback right now from them. And our next meeting is the 2nd Tuesday in May.
Thank you. Any questions about Downtown Facilities Special Committee? Deborah.
Thank you for going to that meeting with SHPO. Did they suggest that even if it's a non-contributing building, they put restrictions on it?
They were unclear whether it was even in a non-contributing building. So they were unclear of that. The Ithaca Historic folks said it is. They've already told us that. I think the state, my feeling is the state was just unclear. They didn't know for a fact, because they hadn't really done any research before the meeting, and so I think it was just confusion, and I'm hoping that's where it goes.
I thought they were not contributing buildings.
That's, excuse me, that's what all of our research lends us to believe. And they said that, they didn't really want to discuss it any further at that meeting. They wanted to wait until we submitted our inquiry, and then they would review the findings.
And the inquiry is all online, and Historic Ithaca has made they've told us that it's not contributing, but that's their opinion anyways. That's what they shared with us.
Wait, who shared that, SHPO or?
Historic Ithaca, which I think is that the right name? Yeah. Historic Ithaca.
Well, there's Historic Ithaca, which is a private organization, and then there's also the city's historic preservation program. So who said what?
I think both the city and Historic Ithaca agree.
Yes. Okay.
As well as our planning department, based on research that they've conducted.
So the state's suggesting that they can now come in and tell us something different?
No, I think that they were just uninformed. That's what it looked like. I mean, it was all new information to them. They were looking at the maps as we entered the meeting, and I think that I'm going to be an optimist at this point.
Somebody's got to be a pessimist, and it's a dirty job, but I'll take it on.
Any other questions for our optimist? Okay, thank you, Randy. Next up, Health and Human Services Committee, Shauna Black, Chair.
Thank you very much. Our next meeting is tomorrow, April 17th at 1 p.m. We're going to have a short presentation from the Food Bank of the Southern Tier, and then we have some advisory board appointments. That's it.
Questions for Shauna? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Housing and Economic Development Committee, Greg Mezzi, Chair.
Thank you, Dan. We last met on April 3rd. Much of what was discussed at that meeting you see in your agenda packet here in the form of resolutions. Two things of note from that meeting. We had a conversation around some sort of continuation or exploring temporary solutions to addressing our homeless issue and our unhoused, and possible continuation of sheltering in certain instances. So that was kind of a kickoff introductory discussion, and more to come around that topic. But that was a conversation with County Administrator Lisa Holmes, and then also Kit Kephart from DSS. So we had that conversation, and then we also looked at, which then was also subsequently shared with all of you via email, some homeless response data that our planning department worked diligently on with a number of community partners to bring together. So that was shared in your inbox and presented at that meeting. We had a change in the agenda. The countywide living wage conversation that we were supposed to have at that meeting will now take place in May, along with a presentation by the Ithaca Board of Realtors on their sort of housing snapshot that they do annually. And so our next meeting will be on May 1st, Wednesday at 3 p.m. I know I have a number of resolutions, which I'm happy to jump into.
Could you just say the date of your next meeting, please?
Wednesday, May 1st.
Question or statement?
Did I say it wrong the first time?
I just didn't hear you.
Oh, sorry. No, I screwed dates up in my last presentation 2 weeks ago, so I'm a little jumpy around dates. So it's the first Wednesday in May. So, all right, cool.
And that's the living wage discussion?
Yes, yeah. And again, there's no action in that meeting or expected in that meeting. It's just the initial conversation with some folks from the Worker Center and others. But if I could go ahead and move Resolution K, Doc ID 12313, Award of Spring 2024 Tourism Advancement Grants. I'll go ahead and move that.
Rich seconds.
This is part of the annual grant program. These tourism grants, you can see the organizations. Again, with all these resolutions that we're about to go through, there's a memo attached which provides further detail for clarity. I do want to say quickly, we have a number of people that volunteer to sit on these grant panels. It is a tremendous amount of work. I know we have some legislators that sit on a few of these, so just want to thank everybody for their involvement to get to the best result here with awarding these grant funds. The reason why I think that this was not included on the consent agenda is because we do have, we had an abstention from Legislator Sigler because of a possible conflict of interest with his day-to-day employment.
Discussion about Resolution K. Deborah.
I just had a question. One of the grantees in this resolution has had an issue in the past getting a permit from the health department for its event, and I wondered if that was some sort of problem going forward.
I have not been privy or a part of any of those conversations, so I would not feel comfortable speaking to that.
Does anybody wish to speak to that?
I don't know, maybe, I hate to put you on the spot, Holly, but do you think that somehow or another our giving a grant would in any way preclude our health department from requiring compliance going forward?
I don't think necessarily. I don't think it precludes enforcement action where needed. I mean, I do think that it's, I don't know if it's odd or questionable, but that same agency, because of the enforcement, they've had to pay fines. So
we might just get this back.
It's possible.
Okay.
Ann.
Yeah, I mean, they had extreme difficulty with 1 year with their permit that was not granted, but, they had many years, if I'm sure I'm referring to the same agency, Grassroots, but they had many years where they have had permits. I'm trying to think. They've been, since the late 90s, I believe, they've been holding this music festival. And I see Nick is here. I don't know if he wants to say anything else.
Just jumping in here, I was following on YouTube and got on as soon as I heard we were up to HED. So I have a little catching up here. Are we on the Tourism Advancement Grant Resolution K?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. No, I don't have any really clarification on that relating to the permit question. I think, all of our grantees are expected to get the permits that are required to hold their events. We try to give them resources to identify what those permits are and determine, what agencies to seek those from, whether it's the county or the state. So yeah, that's a condition of award. I'm not aware of any prior or pending issues with any of the grantees. That said, we don't really ask them in detail about, past compliance. So.
Shauna.
Yeah, so I'm on the Board of Health. It's public knowledge. It's Grassroots. I don't think we need to be.
Well, I was trying to be tactful for a change.
Yeah, well, we saw how that went.
Surprise.
I know. Contain yourself.
And there have been concerns with Grassroots for probably the past 3 to 4 years, to the point where I think there was 1 year, not last year, maybe the year before, that they did not receive a permit to operate. And so I think this raises a really good question, because if we're providing grant funding and they're not in compliance, they're using our money to essentially not do the permits and not making sure that their campgrounds are safe and healthy for everyone. So yeah, I would ask, I guess, I know we don't want to hold up voting for everyone else's, but I guess I would just question, like, from a legal aspect, are people, whenever they're filling out the application, signing off on meeting all the regulations needed?
Yes, that's accurate. And what I was also thinking was relating to this one, if we want to make the grant award conditional on, fulfilling all prior obligations to the county as an additional element of their contract, I think that's completely understandable.
That would make me feel better. I don't know if we need to put it in the resolution or just leave it up to STPB to take care of that.
Well, that'd be me, not STPB.
Okay.
I'm the one who sends the contracts.
Greg.
I would defer to Holly, but I would feel more comfortable including language in the resolution that stated that, just so that it was memorialized and it was clear direction from the legislature on the intent, unless you see a action.
No, I think that that's fine, and I think we can make that condition for all grant
It should be.
recipients.
Make it explicit.
Right, yeah, not just for grassroots, but I think that that should be the case for any of the grant recipients.
Does somebody want to take a crack at coming up with some wording right now? Greg.
So it would be inserted line 18.
What page are we on, please?
Sorry, we're on packet page 58. It would be resolved further that all grant recipients comply with all county and local municipal permitting requirements as a condition of funding. And then it would need to say, yeah.
So you're moving that as an amendment?
I would, yes, please.
That's friendly.
Okay.
I think we would just need to make sure that it's communicated to Liz Cameron and Frank Krupa and give them a list of our awardees so that if for some reason there's an issue, they understand what's at risk and who's on the list.
So an amendment was made and it was found friendly. Is there anyone that objects to the amendment? Okay, great. And Shauna, you didn't need that to be part of the amendment, did you?
No.
Okay, very good. Any further discussion on Resolution K? Travis.
I'm going to recuse myself from the vote because my agency is one of the recipients.
Oh, yeah, there you are, number 2.
Any more discussion?
Sigler has his hand.
Oh, thank you. Mike Sigler.
I'm going to recuse myself from this one as well, and then from the other one. Just, I sell billboard advertising, and I think it's a conflict with if these places do choose to use me, I would like them to be able to.
Okay, very good. Are we ready for a vote then? Please.
Ann Corman.
Yes.
Mike Lane.
Yes.
Greg Mezzi.
Yes.
Veronica Pillar.
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff.
Yes.
Shauna Black.
Yes.
Randy Brown.
Yes.
Amanda Champion.
Yes.
Susan Curry.
Yes.
Deborah Dawson.
Yes.
Rich John.
Yes.
Dan Klein.
Yes.
12 ayes, resolution adopted.
If I may continue?
Yes, please.
Sorry. Resolution L, Doc ID 12314, Award of Spring 2024 Community Celebrations Grants, and I would move that.
Is there a second? Susan.
This, I think, is a great program that is part of the grant program under the STPB, and this has a number, pretty much almost all, pretty much almost all of our municipalities in some way having some form of community celebration. I know with this grant there was a tremendous request for funding. And there, as usual with these grants, there was not enough funding to go around, but I think the community group that came together to award these funds did a nice job trying to balance and allocate the funds that were available.
Discussion. Mike Lane.
I sat on the review committee, and you're right, Greg, I don't think we've ever had so many applications. The maximum grant we could give would be $2,500, and I don't think anybody we awarded that to simply because of the lack of funds. I just wanted to mention that and the discussion for the Southworth Library, which I'm a trustee and president of, I recused myself from that discussion. I'm an unpaid trustee and president, by the way. And I'm not going to recuse myself from this because I don't think there's a conflict.
Any other discussion on Resolution L? Travis?
I'm going to recuse myself again because my agency's on it.
Good. Mike Sigler, do you still have your hand up, or is it the same hand? I think you had recused yourself from both.
It was the same hand, but I'm recusing myself from this one as well.
Very good. Thank you. Any further discussion? Resolution L. Okay, let's have a vote, please.
Ann Corman.
Yes.
Mike Lane.
Yes.
Greg Mezzi.
Yes.
Veronica Pillar.
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff.
Yes.
Shauna Black.
Yes.
Randy Brown,
Yes.
Amanda Champion,
Yes.
Susan Curry,
Yes.
Deborah Dawson,
Yes.
Rich John,
Yes.
Dan Klein,
Yes.
12 ayes, resolution adopted.
Great, two more, if you bear with me. The next resolution is Resolution M, Doc ID 12315, award of 2024 Tompkins Outdoor Grants, and I would move that.
Is there a second? Veronica?
This is to promote outdoor programming, outdoor recreation, a large tourism driver in our community. And you can see the three organizations listed for the awards there. So happy to entertain any questions, but I believe the memo and resolution are relatively self-explanatory.
Questions, comments, Resolution M? Okay, have a vote.
Ann Corman,
Yes.
Mike Lane,
Yes.
Greg Mezzi,
Yes.
Veronica Pillar,
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff,
Yes.
Mike Sigler,
I think I'm still abstaining from this.
Shauna Black,
Yes.
Travis Brooks,
Yes.
Randy Brown,
Yes.
Amanda Champion,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
Deborah Dawson,
Yes.
Rich John,
Yes.
Dan Klein,
Yes.
13 ayes, resolution adopted.
Very good. And then Resolution O?
Can I ask a question?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, Deborah?
I noticed that you had $11,000 left over in this category. I wonder, do you readjust the balances that are assigned to these various programs? Because, for example, Mike said you didn't have enough money to meet the needs of all the community celebrations applicants. So I was just curious to know if you could have used some of what was left over.
Nick, you're probably more closely tied to that process, so if you would mind taking that question.
Yeah, happy to answer that question. We'll be looking at the fund balances left over here, the 11,000, when we prepare our fall grant cycle. So that money may be able to be used for community celebrations or tourism grants during that cycle. So you'll see it come back again in a few months.
Goody.
And Nick, correct me if I'm wrong, but the number of organizations is growing, but the number of eligible organizations for the outdoor grants is a relatively limited pool. And so
Yes.
as we continue to try to grow this grant program, we need to have more eligible or potential eligible organizations be able to apply to see, it fully maximized in a way. But there's a relatively limited pool. So this is one of those areas that you can see a little bit of leftover and reallocation potentially.
Mike Lane?
I was just going to mention that the work that Nick and Kristen did on these grants, particularly for our community celebration, was phenomenal, and we appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay, ready to move on to Resolution O?
Yeah, bear with me on this one. Resolution O, Doc ID 12326. Resolution of the Tompkins County Legislature as the elected legislative body of Tompkins County, New York, in accordance with Section 147F of the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 as amended the code, approving the issuance by the Tompkins County Development Corporation of its tax-exempt and/or taxable revenue bonds, Cayuga Medical Center at Ithaca Incorporated Project, Series 2024, in one or more series as part of a plan of financing in maximum aggregate principal amount not to exceed $8,350,000 for the benefit of Cayuga Medical Center at Ithaca Incorporated. And I will move that.
Is there a second? Travis?
This, to my understanding of the resolution, is procedural and something that we need to do. This does not have a financial impact on the county's bond rating. It does not tie the county to any obligation in any way. But because the Tompkins County Development Corporation is the issuer of these bonds, or the conduit for these for this funding, we have to approve that action as the elected representatives.
Discussion. Okay, I guess we're ready for a vote.
Ann Corman.
Resolution O.
Yes.
Mike Lane.
Yes.
Greg Mezzi.
Yes.
Veronica Pillar.
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff.
Yes.
Mike Sigler.
Yes.
Shauna Black.
Yes.
Travis Brooks.
Yes.
Randy Brown.
Yes.
Amanda Champion.
Yes.
Susan Curry.
Yes.
Deborah Dawson.
Yes.
Rich John.
Yes.
Dan Klein.
Yes.
14 ayes, resolution adopted.
Very good. Any last words, Greg?
No.
Any last questions for Housing and Economic Development Committee?
Rest in peace, Greg.
Sigler?
I think that's the same hand. Mike, did you? No? Okay. All right. Individual member filed resolutions. I believe none. Previous meeting, would somebody please? Travis moves, Veronica seconds. Action of the minutes. Let's have a vote on that.
Ann Corman.
Yes.
Mike Lane.
Yes.
Greg Mezzi.
Yes.
Veronica Pillar.
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff.
Yes.
Mike Sigler.
Yes.
Shauna Black.
Yes.
Travis Brooks.
Yes.
Randy Brown.
Yes.
Amanda Champion.
Yes.
Susan Curry.
Yes.
Deborah Dawson.
Yes.
Rich John.
Yes.
Yes.
14 ayes, minutes accepted.
Unfinished business. Okay, can we get a motion to adjourn? Deborah moves, Veronica seconds. All in favor? Unanimous. The meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everybody. See you next time.